The mission of the Ames Community Schools is to ensure that all learners develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and personal esteem necessary to grow in and shape a changing society.
Thank you. Our first item tonight is a public hearing on the demo of the old Edwards building. Open the public hearing. We had no one wishing to speak. Did you receive any other comments to the office?
No, we did not.
Okay. I'll close the public meeting and take a motion.
I move the board award the contract for the Edwards demolition and deconstruction project to Gator Industrial in the amount of $241,935.
Second.
Moved by Franson, second by Rosser. Discussion? Pleasantly surprised and happy to see this is lower than what we budgeted, so it's always great news. And just to remind everyone, we're still hoping that the Old Edwards Neighborhood Association is actively fundraising to turn that into a park, so I'm encouraged on where that's going. Any other discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Next is our public hearing for the sale of the Crawford Building. I'll open the public hearing. No one wishes to speak. Any comments to the office? No? Close the public hearing and take a motion.
I move the board approve the resolution for the conveyance of real property at 415 Stanton Avenue.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Franson. Discussion.
I'll be voting nay. It has nothing to do with who we're selling it to or what they intend to do. It has to do with our method. And I've been consistent ever since I ran for this office about 9 years ago. We need to auction all of our properties.
I do respect that, Bill. I will be supporting the motion. I think this is a good way for community to move forward with pretty much the last piece of property that we're trying to liquidate. So a lot of great collaboration between the Friedrichs, Jensen's, and the Skane community. I would greatly appreciate that, and I'm hopeful where this will go. So
Yeah. I'll be voting yes on this one also for the simple reason that even many years ago when the middle school property, much more expensive piece of property was up on the auction block. I wasn't on this board at that time, but I argued against that because there are people that think that some of these transactions happen. We get the negative if we sell to a local developer sometimes that these transactions happened in some back room somewhere and we just made a deal and we sold it to some friend or something. And when we sold that old middle school property, the district and the city and everyone in this town would have been benefit for everyone if we would have had somebody come to us and make a deal like this to take that piece of property also. Would we have gotten a little less money? Maybe. In the long run, we would have gained rooftops that we would have had students living in already. And instead, we're many years down the road and we don't have that. This transaction right here gives us a chance to move some families out of houses where we can get single families moving into those houses and move some people into a property that they'll be 55 and up that where a lot of those people don't have kids anymore. So this is a big benefit to the district because we have the chance to grow our student population.
I'll also be supporting this. I think this has been a great example of how the Ames Community School Board District can work with the neighborhood of the property in which we're liquidating and the greater community in doing what's best for liquidating these properties. I said that 2 years ago when I first started talking about running for the school board. It was the right thing to do, and I commend our board president, Luke Dudor, for working very well with the neighborhood over the past year and a half and getting this property going in the right direction.
all right, proceed to vote on roll call.
Rosser, yes.
Briggs, yes.
Rasmussen, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Deardorff, aye.
Talbot, nay.
Esposito, aye.
Passes 6-1. Moving on to our next item is the public forum. We have a length on the list here, number of people. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish must speak up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per board meeting. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. First, we have Jeff Johnson.
Hello, my name is Jeff Johnson. I live at 2721 Cleveland Drive. I'm an Ames High School parent and an ACAC parent. I had 5 different thoughts that I briefly wanted to share regarding Ames Senior High School. My first thought and the information I wanted to share is Ames Senior High School is #1 in the state of Iowa. Not everyone is aware of the fact that when all activities are considered, academics, arts, music, athletics combined, no school in Iowa has won more state championships than Ames High School. I learned that from a teacher and coach at Ames High School. Ames High School truly has a championship tradition. Some prefer to call it an expectation for excellence. My second thought, Ames High School girls swimming and diving has a combined GPA of 3.8. Ames High School boys swimming has a combined average GPA of 3.6. These results are directly impacted by the leadership and emphasis of head coach Dan Flannery. He's the 3rd head coach for girls and boys swimming in Ames High School history. In 50-plus years of boys swimming and 43 years of girls swimming and diving, the 2 teams have won 7 state championships, the girls winning 6 out of the past 7 years. There have been multiple runner-up, 3rd-place finishes, and dozens of top 5 finishes by the 2 teams in those years. The 2015-2016 Ames girls swimming and diving team was named national champions by the National Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association. Swimming is an excellent example of the championship tradition at Ames High School. Ames Cycle and Aquatics Club head coach Mike Peterson swam for Ames High School coach Dan Flannery. 10 years ago, when I was president of the Ames Cycle and Aquatics Club, we tried to hire Mike Peterson. Mike was busy at the time coaching Olympic swimmer Missy Franklin at a Colorado swim club. We were able to eventually get Mike to Ames. Coach Peterson understands Ames High School championship tradition. Through ACAC is currently teaching Ames elementary, middle school, and high school students how to achieve excellence. Coach Flannery's children swim for Coach Mike. Assistant Coach Joe Fisher at Ames High School, who also swam for Ames High School, has children swimming for Coach Mike. Coach Mike has a toddler who will most likely find his way to the pool someday. There's great leadership and coaching experience preparing the future of Ames High swimming. Ames High School girls swimming and diving program and Ames High boys swimming program deserve a minimum commitment of a competitive swimming pool. Swimming is a lifetime activity and something all students should have access to. With a new competitive swimming pool, the district should look into bringing teaching of swimming back to the curriculum at Ames High School. Please use our high school's foundation of excellence and championship tradition and move forward with ACAC as a partner to build a competitive school pool for Ames High swimming. Any partnership that does not include competitive swimming pool will fail. The last thing I ask is, ask yourself what will happen if we wake up tomorrow and the current pool no longer works. The current Ames High swimmers and ACAC swimmers will not quit swimming. They have faced issues before with the current facility, and they will find a way. Students have carpooled to other school districts for swim practice in the past. ACAC has a satellite program in Fort Dodge. Ames High students carpooling to Fort Dodge could be a possibility if a tragedy were to happen with our pool. The school district is in a position to do the right thing, and the time is now.
Thank you. Next we have Neil Bentley.
I'm Neil Bentley. I have a son in junior at Ames High who swims. The only thing I wanted to say.
Neil, for the record, address, please.
Pardon?
Address, please.
Oh,
For the record.
3011 Eisenhower.
Thank you.
Ames, sorry.
Thank you.
My thought, hearing all the chatter over the last couple of years about this issue, is in negotiation, if the other side says we want to study this, it usually means no. So if we would like to put up with that for the next 50 years with another pool, then vote that way. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Joe Fisher.
My name is Joe Fisher. I live at 3728 Bridgeport Drive. I here tonight as a member of the staff at Ames Community School District. Question for me regarding this pool is, what do we need? For the entire 30 years I've lived in Ames, I've been in one way or another a member of the swimming community. I was an age group swimmer with ACAC. I swam as an Ames High Little Cyclone, and I swam as an Iowa State Cyclone. I continue to swim to stay healthy, and I'm assistant coach for both the boys and the girls team. I'm also a swim parent with 4 of my young children on the club team. These 30 years of being involved in swimming in Ames have provided me with a rather unique perspective on the question of what do we need. To me, it's all about what we need and what we want. I feel our biggest need is more space and more time. Our club program and high school programs are growing in both skill and size. With increased skill comes the need for both more space and more time. The same goes for increase in size. We need more space and we need more time. So how do we get what we need? I see 2 paths, with the city or without. So we moved down the path of partnering with Ames. They put together a plan, and amazingly it has everything we need. Hot water, cold water. Then they start their studies. We begin to lose what we need. Then they look at costs. We begin to lose more of what we need. And what we end up with is something that is too small, has too little of everything, with no ability to grow, and too small of a parking lot. I'll use Furman Aquatic Center as an example of this. The problem is the city just can't see that nice things cost money. So again and again, they come up short. The other path is to go forward without the city, partner with the club. Is there risk to that? Sure. There's risk to everything in business. But this risk can be mitigated with good planning and vision. So I ask you to build what this school and community needs and control who uses it. Build a facility that will allow for the growth of both programs, as well as the inclusion of other outside programs, such as master's swimming or lesson programming. This path keeps our kids on school grounds. The high school program gets what it needs, and the club program, without which our high school program would not be successful, gets what it needs. We build something for Ames to be proud of. We build something that allows for growth. We build something with vision, something that is not for today, but is for tomorrow. Something we not just need, but something we want. There's a reason we have so many National Merit Scholars. There's a reason our athletic programs have more state titles than anyone in this state. Because we are Ames, we are better. Build something that Ames deserves. I love this town, I love this school, and I love swimming. We can and need and want to do better. You don't need the city. This city does need you. So I say jump in and build the pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Sarah Song. We'll just have one at a time, if you would.
Good evening, my name is Sarah Song. I live on 3109 Rosewood Circle. I'm currently a freshman at Ames High School. So I was going to give my speech with Kirsty Robertson, so I'll tell it in a two-person perspective. Kirsty and I both swim for ACAC, and we swam for the Ames High swim team this past fall. I have been in ACAC for almost 8 years, and Kirsty here joined 2 years ago. We are both in honors and advanced classes, which accurately represents the overall capabilities of the swim team. By comparing the average GPA of other school sports teams with the Ames High swim team, you will find that we are among the highest. It is an established fact that sports are beneficial to a child's grades. Many of our friends participate in other sports, such as tennis, softball, track, and soccer. Over recent years, more and more sports are getting new facilities. Right next to where we are right now are the new baseball and softball diamonds. As the years pass, those of us on the swim team have begun wondering when we'll finally get our new facility. Personally, I remember a day around 4 years ago when I was still in 5th grade when my mom came home after work and told me that they were considering building a new pool. I was super excited by this news and was like, great, I don't have to deal with this pool anymore. Well, fast forward 4 years and we still don't have a new pool. Kirsty and I both know we probably won't be around long enough to see a new pool put in place. But the need for a new pool in Ames is still real and a significant need. We both have younger siblings that are both in ACAC, and they don't plan on quitting anytime soon. A new pool for Ames would have numerous benefits for the community. It would provide a place for people to swim during the winter months and could potentially be a way to teach every child in the Ames Community School District how to swim. Ensuring that the pool is suitable for competition would only help the swim team's ability to continue on the legacy of winning. The Ames High girls swim team is among the most decorated of the teams at Ames High. With around 55 girls participating in the past high school season and around 70 boys, the pool is frankly lacking space. With more and more people coming out to join swimming, the lack of space presents a pressing problem that needs to be addressed. ACAC has already begun turning away potential swimmers due to the lack of space. Kirsty, who already has a sectionals cuts, which is a level higher than the state level, and that's quite an achievement considering she's only been swimming for 2 years. Due to the lack of space, we could be turning away someone else who has Kirsty's potential or even more. With the pool built in 1960, older than both of our parents, it is simply extremely old and far from optimal condition. With the time we all have put in swimming, we hope that the school board sees why a new pool that is suited for competition is so important and necessary for us. A new pool would ensure that future kids would have a safe and optimal place to spend their time. Contrary to popular belief, Kirsty and I both care for our sisters and want them and the future kids of Ames to have a safe and enjoyable swimming experience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kirsty, you wanted to talk? Okay. Next we have Kirsty Robertson.
I'm Kirsty Robertson, and I live at 3014 White Oak Drive, and I go to Ames High. So me and Sarah were originally going to do our presentation together, but I'm just going to top on one of the main topics that I believe is most important, which is why we need the new competition pool is because of the space. I've only been swimming for 2 years, and it's the best decision that I've made sports-wise. I'm really happy with the team, and it's a great family, and everyone's so connected, but as Sarah was saying, we've had to turn down numerous people because we don't have the space. And it's really not that good because there's so many people that could have potential that we'll never find out about, and yeah, so that's about it.
Thank you. Next we have Kate McLeod.
Hello, I'm Kate McLeod, and I live at 5316 Cervantes Drive. And currently, I'm an 8th grader at Ames Middle School. So the Ames High pool is incapable of operating at the level the Ames School District and the Ames community requires. This facility is crumbling down on itself and its users. Practices have had to be canceled due to crucial parts of the pool breaking with old age or overuse. It is fine to miss practice every once in a while, but the days build up. If the pool were to break near a state meet or important event, there could be disastrous repercussions for the swimmers depending on it. When Ames High swimming and ACAC and swim lessons, there are capacity complications. ACAC has had to turn down a number of individuals wanting to swim because of the lack of room for the swimmers. Even swimmers already a part of the swim team are forced to cram into congested lanes to free space for other members of the team. Even with the rundown facility we use, swimmers dedicate their time, money, and energy into doing the best we can. Swimmers, including myself, are invested in swimming, but also in school. We as a team have a 3.7 GPA. Just because we are smart individuals, we still learn new things every day. At swim practice, we pick up life lessons like dedicating ourselves to something, staying motivated, social skills, and pushing ourselves and others to get better at everything we do. I know by the time the pool is built, I will be long gone from Ames High and ACAC. But for my little sister and other future generations, I ask you to dedicate your time and energy into giving them the best conditions for future success. Also, I'd like to talk about the other sports at Ames High that are getting new facilities, and I would just like to say that it'd be great for us to have a new facility as well. And a 50-meter pool while still joining with the city would be great, because if you guys build one by yourself, the city's still going to be left out. And I think if we join together and we work out what we both need and we both want, like Mr. Fisher said, the two pools, instead of having two pools, it would be more efficient and better for the community and the swimmers. And if you don't agree with why we need a new pool, please put yourself and your children in our shoes. And what would be best for you, your family, and the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Allison Robertson.
Good evening. I'm Alison Robertson. I live at 3014 White Oak Drive. I'm the parent of two children in the Ames Community School District, a 9th grader and a 4th grader. Both of them swim for ACAC, and my daughter swims for the Ames High School team. I was very concerned when I heard that the school board wanted to partner with the Ames City to build a pool at the health center. Most of my concern was based around the fact that it looked like the pool was going to be a much smaller pool, 6 lanes, 25 yards, and warm. And this is not a competitive swim pool. It's really not going to cater for the needs of the school board. I don't need to remind you that the Ames High swimming and diving teams are exceptional. It's already been pointed out to you how many state championships they've won. It's been pointed out to you as well that the girls diving and swimming team were national champions last year. And I think that it's very sad that these kids who have done so much are trying to swim in this poor facility. I know that one of the thoughts you might have is, well, maybe this is just a flash in the pan. How long can our school swimming team stay so strong? Well, it's been brought up time and time again by people before me that we have ACAC feeding swimmers into this program. If you look at the ACAC program, it's exceptionally strong. As numerous people have mentioned, we are continually turning people away. At the past state championships, ACAC was runner-up in the state championships in the age group, and they won the 8 and under state championships. That means that for at least the next decade, we have excellent swimmers coming into the Ames School program. And I think that you owe it to them to build them a competitive pool. Right now, the way I see it, You're building a T-ball field for the Chicago Cubs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Ian Snyder.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Ann Snyder. I am speaking as a physician in the community and also as a parent of an ACAC swimmer. Your job as a school board is what is in the best interest of your students. That's your job, that's what you're supposed to do. The city council's job is to do what is in the best interest of the citizens of Ames. In regards to pools, these two interests are not the same. Your students need a deep, cool water, 25-meter stretch pool. They need a competition pool. The temperature of the water might not seem that significant, but it is, as warm water and warm air leads to more toxic gases, which are part of the health problem that the current swimmers are experiencing. You have 4 articles from the medical literature in front of you that I dropped off for you to look at supporting this. Breathing in these gases is irritating to the swimmer's lungs, which is leading to asthma and other health problems. The current temperature the city is keeping the pool at is too warm for the competitive swimmers. It prevents them from training at their maximum capacity, and when they try to exert themselves, they run the risk of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. It's 2 different visions. You cannot have one single vision. The pool, the city's needs and the school's needs are different. An analogy I can give is you aren't having your softball team play on your baseball field just by redrawing the lines. It's 2 separate sports. You have a baseball field and you have a softball field. The same thing is said here. A shallow, warm water, 6-lane pool, which has been discussed by the city for their healthy lifestyle project, is not what your students need. The divers need a deep water basin. It's truly remarkable to me that your swimming and diving teams have had the success they've had in the past in spite of the facilities that they're in. You have a tremendous group of dedicated athletes and coaches who deserve the respect that you've given your other athletic teams. It's been talked about tonight, but my question I had is, when the Ames High swimmers walk out of this building and they see the beautiful softball and baseball complex, what goes through their minds? Just because the sport that they've chosen to love involves a pool doesn't mean that they should be shorthanded. You have the money to build this pool, you have the land, and you have a viable partner in ACAC. We are not pioneering anything. There are many examples of school districts out there who have found a way to build and operate a pool on their own. One of the best examples is Linn-Mar. We have real numbers of what it costs to run a facility such as Linn-Mar, and ACAC is here to support that endeavor. Building this facility and partnering with ACAC is again what is in the best interest of your students. Your swimming and diving teams are not the only ones who would benefit. Your PE classes, your other athletic teams could use this facility for cross-training. You could do kayaking courses. You could have a water polo team. You could have synchronized swimming. It's endless, the opportunities, when the facility is yours. The time is now. The health problem is real. You have a letter in front of you from Dr. Jay Brown, who's an asthma doctor, signed by his colleagues and many of the pediatricians, supporting you and encouraging the Ames School District to once again do what is in the best interest of your students and build a new pool. Time is of essence. Don't outsource your responsibility to the city. Your responsibility is to the kids. Why rely on others to make it happen when you have the resources to do it yourself and you have ACAC here to support you? I urge you as a school board to do what is right for the students and build a competitive pool, partnering with ACAC, one of the premier swim clubs in the state. Make the decision for the students that you are pledged to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Melissa Sorensen.
Hi, my name is Melissa Sorensen. I live at 5050 North Dakota Avenue. I have a junior at Ames High who swims for Dan on the Ames High team as well as ACAC, and I have a daughter who graduated from Ames High who also swam on the swim team and with ACAC. I'm also encouraging all of you to vote to part ways with the city and move forward on your own to build a district-wide pool. I'm also going to agree with the last speaker that the Linn-Mar pool has been doing wonderful things for its students district-wide, not just their high school students. They're running learn to swim lessons and other activities for all their schools, not just the high school. A few hours ago, I had no intention of getting up here to speak. I figured, why bother? My child is never going to reap the benefits of this new pool if it ever gets built. But I'm here for the future talent that's in this city. I don't want any of these future swimmers to have to endure what my child had to endure to try to reach her dreams and her potential. We spent many hours in the car driving back and forth to Iowa City and elsewhere to get the training she needed to reach her goals. I'm also here because I love this sport. I think the kids that swim in this sport are amazing. They're amazing, top-notch kids in the pool and in the classroom. Swimming at Ames High has become a huge tradition, a tradition of not only winning, but a tradition of fun. Dan gets more kids out for swimming than any other sport. Why? It's because everyone is welcome. He doesn't cut anyone. Everyone gets to compete. The cool part is we just keep getting better and better. I remember 7 years ago when my oldest daughter was a freshman and they won their first state championship. Dan thought he had the dream team, and so do we. The funny part is 7 years later, the team he has today would crush that team. And the reason why is because of feeder programs like ACAC. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana. They just won their 30th straight state title. And why? Because they have such a great relationship with their feeder club in the town. ACAC could be that partner for you. We just need a place to practice and a place to compete. The city of Ames does not have a desire to build a competition pool or running one, and they don't want it on school grounds. We need this pool to be on school grounds for our swimmers. They're there super early in the morning and there again late at night. I can tell you that Harrison Barnes didn't reach his potential being in the Parks and Recs basketball program or even just being an Ames High basketball player. He had a great, successful club team, and that's what ACAC is to Ames High Swimming. This past Tuesday was a really exciting day in my house. Not only was it full of excitement, but it was also filled with some stress. One of the coaches from the University of Kentucky was coming to watch my daughter practice and recruit her. She was flying all the way to Ames for one day to watch her swim. That's big time. They finished third in the SEC, and they're the toughest conference in the country in swimming. My biggest fear was, is the pool going to be open? Because the week before, the pool got closed because of air quality issues. And the funny thing is, it got closed the next morning. On Wednesday morning, at 5 in the morning, we get the text, practice is canceled because of air quality. How embarrassing would that have been for her to fly all that way and say, sorry, there's nothing for you to watch. So that's our fear as a club right now and as a high school team, is that we will get shut down all the time due to the ventilation. And our athletes cannot afford that to happen. We've had many college coaches coming to do recruiting, and we're going to have many, many more in the future. And I want us to be proud to show off our facilities. I'm going to read you the text that I got from this coach after she left about the pool. I asked her about it, and she said, it was something else, and she said, but the air quality is definitely tough. It's incredible Ames High and the club teams are doing so well given the conditions. Imagine what the teams can do with a new pool. Oh, I would love to know what that feels like. I've been a member of the Ames High Booster Club and have served as a parent sport rep for swimming for 3 years. It's a job I've struggled with at times because I sit through the meetings where they skirt around the pool issues and then go on to rant and rave about the new updated facilities and projects like the football scoreboard, the new state-of-the-art baseball fields. All of these projects are awesome and we should be super proud of them. Now let's build a pool so we can be proud of it as well instead of being embarrassed about it. A pool that serves all our students. Everything from PE classes, lifeguarding, etc. Before my husband's passing this fall, he served as the ACAC vice president for 6 years, and I served as a registrar as well as a meet director for 6 years. I can tell you that ACAC is chomping at the bit to help bridge the gap when it comes to the operating costs that seem to be the big hang-up. Our treasurer can speak more about how instrumental ACAC can be in helping make this project a reality. 2 years ago, the swim team was so frustrated with our inferior facility. We'd go to all these other high school pools and seeing all the improvements they were making, one of them being all the new state-of-the-art starting blocks. So it became my husband's mission to get those blocks for our pool. We figured if we're going to have the worst pool in the state, let's at least have some killer starting blocks. And it was through my husband's time and effort that he convinced Judge to put in the new blocks if ACAC would pay for half of them, which we did. Mind you, that all the other school districts are paying, they're heading up the project and paying for it for themselves. It never would have happened if we wouldn't have researched it, made it happen, and footed almost $12,000 for the project, and we don't own anything there. That's how invested ACAC is in this and how bad we want to help. I hope all of you will think long and hard about making the decision to part ways with the city and move forward with plans for construction of an Ames Community School District pool that is constructed on Ames High School grounds. We need to think more about the students in our district and stop dragging our feet on this project. This has been going on entirely way too long. Isn't our motto Ames High, Ames High? Let's do it.
Thank you. Next, we have Sue Reichenberg-Weiner.
Susan Richenberg Weiner, and I'm at 3202 Harrison Road. I'm here to talk to you as the treasurer of ACAC. I know I'm not an Ames parent, but I've been around these kids for the last 7.5 years, and I can assure you that my interest in these kids is greater than that of the city's. I believe that the city is interested primarily in the school district's checkbook. Over the last 2 weeks, I have had meetings with local residents and read any article I could get my hand on. There was no discussion or mention of a competitive pool. This is what the Ames swim and dive teams need, and it just so happens that it's what ACAC wants and needs as well. The partnership between the school and the swim club is the most natural fit. Based on my discussion with local residents, I literally have been out walking the streets, stopping people in the malls, not telling them who I am, to ask them their opinions on things, because I wanted to find out if I was biased. I have 2 kids that pick swimming, so I look at it through swim goggles. I wanted to know what the public felt. Based on those discussions, I began to realize that our community just needs more water. The Ames High School District, having one, would satisfy the school and the club, and the city would work to satisfy the rest of the community. I know that the club can bridge the gap going forward such that the Ames High School budget will not be impacted. Bottom line, I don't believe that Ames High should partner with the city, and they should not put off planning their pool. Now is the time to move forward on your own with 100% support from ACAC and the power it has. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Grace Snyder.
All right. Hi, I'm Grace Snyder, and I am a senior at Ames High. I have been swimming for the past 10 years. I started swimming with not a care in the world and just a love for the water. Never would I thought 10 years ago I would get to continue my passion of swimming at Iowa State. Through my 10 years at Ames Municipal Pool, most of these hours were spent in the pool in early mornings, late nights, and right after school. Swimming hasn't just given me valuable life skills, but it has helped me develop time management skills to use in the pool and in the classroom. Me and Morgan Rosser, we were going to talk together, who's also graduating in swimming Division I. Our time is soon to be up at Ames High and at the pool, but our hope is to give the future generations a healthy, sizely, and efficient competition pool that we as a community can be proud of. It is time for a new pool that these kids who work day in and day out to do what they love in conditions that make you not want to breathe when you walk into the pool, but for all of the Ames community. As we look around the room, you see a room full of young athletes who came here on their own to speak about what they love and what we believe in. They teach us at school not to be afraid, to make noise about the things that matter to us. You look around, ages 12 through 18, we gather here to encourage this school district to decide soon on a plan that will give Ames a facility that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Morgan Rosser.
Hello, I'm Morgan Rosser, and I'm a senior at Ames High School, and I'll also be graduating next month with Grace. I've been competitively swimming for 15 years, and it really is a huge part of my life, if not like all of my life. But I'd like to talk about swimming and why a new facility really is in need. So aside from swimming being a lifelong skill that saves lives, it also teaches hard work, time management, and a healthy lifestyle. Being a swimmer for so long now, I can attest to the fact that being active in swimming has made me a better student. Our team's GPA is a combined 3.7, which is pretty impressive compared to other sports. Within the swimming world, Ames High and ACAC have grown to become a powerhouse in the state of Iowa, and it was hard work and dedication that led us here. Having a below-average facility is not only unappealing to other teams that do not want to compete at our meets, but it is also unappealing to prospective athletes. ACAC has recently had to tell swimmers eager to join our team that there's no room for them. If Grace and I had been denied the opportunity to compete in swimming, our lives would be much different, and we certainly wouldn't have been presented with the opportunity to swim at Division I programs in college. So why should we have to limit the potential of young swimmers with the same dreams that we had? As we will both be graduating next month, it is very important to us that the school, clubs, and teams of Ames have a facility that they so greatly deserve. We believe that no one should be denied the opportunity to take part in something so valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Feddersen.
Hello, my name is Dan Feddersen. I live at 2508 Dalton Street. I have a daughter who is a sophomore on the girls' swim and dive team, and I just want to say I'm very thankful for the program and for the coaches that we have. I'm speaking today to address the vote to consider reopening discussions with the City of Ames concerning a partnership between the school and city to build and operate a pool as a part of the Healthy Life Center. I do not support an off-grounds facility operated by the City of Ames, and I do not support entering into future discussions with the City of Ames. I do strongly support an on-school grounds competitive pool to serve the community of Ames, including the Ames High swimming and diving teams, the swimming club members, Special Olympic swimmers, and members of the community who want to swim for fitness. I understand that the Ames Community School District needs a viable partner to help pay for the annual operating costs, and I feel that this can be done through a partnership with ACAC, and that a partnership with the City of Ames is not necessary. It is even possible that this partnership with ACAC could save the district money by increasing the number of swimmers in the program and the ability to hold more competitive meets. The goals and vision of ACAC and Ames High Swimming are similar and directly aligned with each other. There are hundreds of youth in the Ames area served by ACAC and Ames High Swimming. The vision of the City of Ames for the Healthy Life Center is not aligned with the high school swimming program or competitive swimming. After years of talks with the city and after hiring a consultant to see how the options of a partnership could work, the city decided they did not want to partner with the Ames High. They have a plan to build off the school grounds, and they have sought other partners for their center. They have indicated no interest in serving the competitive swim community or supporting the facilities that are needed for this type of program. We know from experience that the current partnership with the city and the use of the pool has not been positive, and the swim program is mostly treated as a burden. We all know the current pool has been in operation far beyond its normal lifespan, and you have heard about the deleterious effects that it is having on our athletes' health. It's time to move forward on building a new pool on the school grounds. The time for partnering with the city has passed, and the city has chosen to move past that and close those doors. It is time to move forward and not take steps backwards, which we have seen fail in the past. An agreement to partner with the city would take years to result in a new pool, if at all. It would result in a facility that would not address the needs of the high school or the ACAC or competitive swimming. It would be located off school grounds, which would be a burden to students and their families for transportation, and it would limit some students' ability to participate. I urge you to vote no on returning to talks with the city to partner for a pool, and I urge you to move forward with building of a pool on the school grounds with a partner that will work with the school with similar goals and interests at mind for the hundreds of Ames students for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Mia Molden.
Hello, my name is Maya Molden and I'm open enrolled in Ames, but I'm currently going to Ballard. I started swimming when I was 8 years ago. I wasn't the best at it, but I liked it. 4 years later, I joined ACAC and almost immediately all 4 of my strokes improved immensely. One day, I was having a private lesson with my coach, Mike Peterson. We were working on butterfly. At the end of the lesson, Mike looked into my eyes and told me, "Maya, your butterfly is going to win state." Flash forward to a month ago, after years of dedication and waking up at 4 a.m. for morning swim practices, I won state in the 200-yard butterfly. This swim program we have here is amazing, and it's a friendly and competitive environment that I love. ACAC swimming has given me great experiences that I could not get anywhere else. I am currently an 8th grader at Ballard Middle School, but next year I will be transferring to Ames as a freshman of high school. The reason that I am transferring is simply for my love of swimming and the outstanding program that Ames has to offer. I love everything about my sport except for one thing, the pool. And don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful to have a pool to practice in, but the pool is very old. The air system is failing and our equipment is aged. We have been waiting for a new pool for 5 years now. All of the other sports at Ames have new equipment and good facilities. Why are those sports better than mine? When is the last time Ames football team won state or the playoffs? The Ames High School girls team has won state 6 out of the past 7 times. The boys team is getting better and better year after year, and there's a good chance that this is the year they will win state. If our team is this good, why can't we have a pool that we've been asking for 4 years? Why are the other sports getting treated better than our team when our team has accomplished great things? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Olivia Jenks.
Hi, my name is Olivia Jenks, and I'm a junior at Ames High School. I've been swimming for ACAC since 2008 or 2009, and for the high school swim team since my freshman year. Something that I'd like to talk about today that people haven't really mentioned much is the culture of the Ames High swim team and as well as ACAC. This culture has offered me something that's unlike any other sports team in the entire state of Iowa. The swimmers that I have grown up with have come together and grown to be a family. From ACAC and the high school swim team, I've learned the values of trust, respect, accountability, sportsmanship, dedication, intrinsic motivation, and true friendship. On my hardest days, I turn towards this group of peers to help me push through the pain, and on my best days, my swim family continues to encourage and inspire my dreams. As a team, we have been through a lot together, whether it be cool experiences like state titles or meeting a long-term goal, or difficult times of grief. This team is here for me, and I am here for them. What I'm trying to say is that I would never trade this team for anything. It's devastating to me to hear that ACAC is constantly turning away new faces and new swimmers from the club for a lack of pool time and space, because I know what this team has to offer, both lifelong and possibly life-saving lessons. As a school board, I implore you to find a solution that allows ACAC and the high school team to allow every single young swimmer to participate in the program for the next 50 years. I would hate to learn that the club has to turn away any more athletes from this amazing program and all it has to offer. Whatever decision the school board decides to make, the new facility must be able to support the growth of both the club and the high school teams for the next 50 years. Our current pool has hit its maximum capacity for the team. If this new pool isn't large enough, ACAC will again be forced to turn down young athletes who want to share in this community and this family. This is not a decision that can be taken lightly simply because it is one that will not be made again for a very long time. The next generation of great swimmers is on the way. Is the school board ready to encourage their development as they have mine? Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Leah Dietrich.
Hello, my name is Leah Dietrich, and I'm a sophomore at Ames High. And I've been swimming for about 8 years now.
and I'm also one of 10 children. I have 5 younger brothers, 2 of which swim, and my older sister swam as well. And I just know how awesome our team is and how much my little brothers love swimming and how excited my youngest 3 brothers are to join swimming and have the opportunities and the experiences that I have had. And it kind of worries me about our pool and the quality that we're in right now because it could take away those experiences from my little brothers. And that would break my heart. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Peter Sawyer.
Is that Peter?
Try it again.
What?
Say it
again. Peter.
My name is Peter Sauhe. I grew up in Ghana, so you can tell. I live in Ames, 516 25th Street. I have been reading about achievement gap, and I've been thinking about it. And I have come up with some ideas that when we talk of achievement or assessment or performance, we are talking about output from the students. And that if we are going to talk about output, we must also talk about input, because the two go together. And that the factors that affect input are the district, the teachers, and the students. There are other factors like interest, expectation, goals, and so on. But these are the 3 main factors. Now, when I look at the district, is the district treating all students equally? Are they all given the same textbooks, the same computers, they go to the same school? Is the treatment equal? And I will say that yes, the treatment is equal. And so I will eliminate the district. Are the teachers treating the students equally? They give the same assignment. When I have been to the schools, the rubric that they use to grade the students are the same. Deadline is the same for the students. So again, I'm going to eliminate the teachers unless somebody has strong reason to think that this achievement gap is the result of teaching. That comes to the students. That is more individualized. And here maybe examples will be better. I was doing long term at Ankeny, and the students were given a test, and the Ankeny had a system where students are given a second chance to improve their score. This student who had 95%, which is certainly an A, came and said she wanted to redo part of the test that prevented her from getting 100%. So for that student, 100% was the goal. I had to go around and ask every student whether they wanted to do a retake, so I would know how many I can print. I went to another student, he said, B is my goal, I'm getting my B, I'm happy. It's fine. Okay. Every year, the Des Moines Register compiles a list of the high academic achievers in the state. Every school, every high school submits a name, their best student, and then a committee is formed, and they look at these students. They reduce the list to 50, and then they reduce it further to 10. Several Ames students have been on that list. Go Ames. And one year they were interviewed, and they were asked what enabled them to perform so well. And all 10 said hard work. I don't think there is anybody here who will doubt that. They agree that they have talent, but they said it is the hard work. I listened to some Ames middle school students talking. I just overheard them, and they were probably talking about grades. And one student said, in my family, if you don't get a B, the cell phone is taken away. So it means in that family, they relate output to input and input to what is causing. If the output is going down, it means input is going down, and if input is going down, it means something is causing that input, preventing that input. So they identify cell phone, that's their solution. Some families think fatigue can affect input, so they have a bedtime policy. Okay. Ankeny High School has a program. I was there today. I am a substitute teacher, so I serve in Ames, Ballard, and Ankeny. I was in Ankeny today, and I asked one of the teachers who participate. They have a program called SOS, Save Our Students. And what happens is that teachers who have the time and are willing stay 1 hour after class to help students who are struggling. The teachers are paid for that. So I asked one of the teachers what he thought about the program. And she said it was great, that those who participate benefit a great deal. So if we are going to address this issue, we must move it into the input stage. That will enable us to have a program that will be able to evaluate, like what Ankeny is doing. I'm not saying that we imitate Ankeny. It may also be interesting to survey the students, say take a class, 9 graders, 10 graders, whatever grade, and have a survey. And from the survey, find out what it is that helps some students do well and prevent some students from doing so well. We can also survey a sample of parents. Mathematics is my major, you can tell. Survey students, parents. When do you know that your student is behind on assignment? What do you do when you notice that? What do you do that works? And so on. And maybe from this we can come up with a program that will address this issue. It will also enable us to move this issue from something that is being talked about to something that something is being done about, to a point where something is being done about. And when we put it at that point, then we'll be able to evaluate it. And we can say that, oh yes, like Ankeny is doing. I asked a teacher today, is the program working? Yes. Those who participate benefit. We'll be able to evaluate what we are doing, and probably we will stop talking about this achievement gap. But as somebody who has been in the classroom since 1966, I can tell you that any program that we put up that does not include the students is not likely to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Carla Weiner. Carla Weiner.
Can I present something?
Yeah, you can give it, yeah.
My name is Carla Weiner. I live at 447 Westwood Drive, and I have 2 children that are in the ACAC program, and my older son is in the high school program. I think the reason I wanted to speak tonight was to talk to the sense of urgency about this issue. We know there's a problem. I took pictures on Saturday to just show what I've been observing, and honestly, when I looked at the pictures after the fact, it reminded me of when I traveled in Russia in 1990 and saw facilities there. So I think speaking to what others have said, I went to drop my son off at swimming at 5:30 in the morning on Wednesday and had to take him right back home because the facility was closed. So another thing that I have done recently to try and understand both sides is I walked with my neighbor who is on the Healthy Lifestyle Committee. And I just wanted to talk to understand her perspective. And we had a great conversation. Some of her views were different than some of the things I've heard as far as the willingness to partner. But even she said, no matter whether you come back to the table or not, you need a plan B. Because in order to partner with the city, you're going to have to look at going to designing a facility, going to RFP,
getting a referendum for a bond. And I just don't think we have that kind of time. So where does that leave us? I was trying to think, what are creative options here? We know we have the money to build. So how do we sustain it? That seems to be a question. With those pictures, and back to the urgency, when I printed those, my coworker said, do you really send your child to swim in that? And I had to ask myself, wow, what am I doing? So I think, we have the money to build a facility, and we have to figure out how to sustain it. Recently, I think some of the people in this room received the email that Chuck Weiglis, the executive director of the Swimming Association, passed away. And he had a motto throughout his career of talking about how you build, promote, achieve. And I think if we build, if we promote, if we achieve, we are going to sustain. So I would say let's start looking to build, and we will figure out a way to sustain with lots of different efforts. But I don't think we have time anymore to talk about, do we need it or don't we? We are at the end of the line, and I urge you as a board to consider how do we get this resolved and creative options urgently. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Satterwhite.
I'm Mike Satterwhite. I'm Carla's husband, 447 Westwood Drive. I want to say, Alyssa knows this is hard for me. I speak all the time. I teach. I'm never at a loss for words, except about my kids and my wife. So, and my son would be here helping, speaking about this head and heart thing. But he is busy, along with several other Ames High swimmers, preparing for the World Championship Robotics Competition in St. Louis this weekend. These are sharp kids. This is a head and a heart business, swimming. But the city has largely portrayed this pool issue as an ACAC complaint, not as a potentially serious health issue that should be treated as a crisis. I spoke with Steve Schenk and Keith Abrams almost 2.5 months ago about this very issue, at a point when the competitive swimmers would take a break and provide a good window for corrective action. Other swim parents, including the family doctor who treated our son for respiratory problems, called as well. I was not the only voice. Granted, lane lines were finally replaced due to the dangers posed by disintegration, yet nothing was done about the primary complaint of toxic air, at least not until we came to a school board meeting and made our case. This 2.5-month delay to address a toxic situation affecting the health of kids is indicative of the kind of partnership we have had and will continue to have with the city should they be in charge or have substantial control of an indoor practice pool facility. Working with the city means more delays exacerbated by discussions with multiple partners that will further complicate and ultimately doom a much-needed solution to this crisis, and it is a crisis. By the school board's own projections, as projected in this Gantt chart, which I found, okay, our swimmers were to be practicing in the new facility in approximately 9 weeks, June 30th, 2017. I don't think we're going to make that. All of the other projects on this chart are completed, including this building. Congratulations. The high school and pool remain not only unfinished, but unresolved. 2 years ago, the city formed a committee to explore a partnership with the competitive swimming community to build something very like what is now being called a Healthy Lifestyle Center. Alyssa, you were on that committee. We testified then about the same problems you've been subject to the past few weeks. We watched a misleading PowerPoint presentation that did more to position the swimming community as an adversary than a partner. The municipal pool continued its downward spiral and nothing happened. Today, a new Healthy Lifestyle Committee has been formed by the city requesting conversations with Dr. Taylor and the board. To my knowledge, no member of the competitive swimming community was asked to serve on this committee. But now there are even more potential partners being discussed, like DMAC and McFarland Clinic. adding a few more cooks to the kitchen. There is no reason to believe the city is serious about partnering with the competitive swimming community other than as a funding source. Look at the partners you already have. 500 committed parents and grandparents and 150 swimmers. Dan Flannery, Joe Fisher, Mike Peterson, Brian Lederhouse, and Ben Utesh. It would be impossible to imagine a greater commitment to Ames Swimming. In business, when you have partners like these, you stop talking and you start building, especially when you have a serious problem and the money to solve it. As a final thought, consider this. If Ames had a perfect, ideal pool with excellent air, water, and space, what these kids are doing would be extremely hard. 20 hours a week in the pool. So imagine how hard it is right now. Thank you.
Next, we have Annie Galvin. Annie Galvin?
Okay, good evening. I'm Annie Galvin. I'm currently an 8th grader at Ames Middle School, and I'll be a freshman at Ames High School next year. I started swimming about 7 years ago, and I fell in love with it. About every year, I've watched all the kids older than me and the high school team have so much success, and I'm so excited to be a part of that, but it's hard to, it's hard to realize that there could be a tragedy happening to the pool any minute, and it's just not something that I'd like to worry about, or any of us would like to. And I know that it's not very likely that I will see a new pool, while I'm in Ames, but I'd like to advocate for my younger siblings and the younger generations to so that they are able to continue this tradition that Ames has. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Gracie Weisselman.
Hi, I'm Gracie Wesselman. I'm an 8th grader at Ames Middle School, and I'm also going to be a freshman at Ames High next year. I've been swimming for about 5 years, and for those past 5 years, we've been promised a pool, and the pool has been talking about, but nothing has been put into action. And so we have one of the best teams in the state, but we don't have an adequate pool to train in. And a lot of other teams and high school teams in the state are getting new pools built, and their teams are continuing to get better and better. So the younger generation is coming up and coming, and they're most likely not going to, our generation hasn't seen a pool yet, and we probably won't, but the younger generation coming in shouldn't be deprived of of the opportunities that we should have had. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes it. So I'll close the public forum and move on to our first discussion item tonight, guiding coalition work, how it impacts students. Pam.
Good evening. As Jeremy's getting that ready to go, I'd like to introduce the fine people that I have beside me. And I'm really excited to be able to do this presentation tonight with the team that I have. So beside me, I have Erin Barr, an instructional coach. I have Brianna Van Dyke, an instructional coach. Jeremy Knudsen, who is the interim associate principal for this year, and Teresa Schleisman, who is an associate principal. We have spent the last few years really taking a good look at where we are and where we want to go. One of the quotes that I like referencing is an old one from, it's Deal and Peterson, and it says, "People create culture, thereafter it shapes them." And since my coming to the Ames Middle School, we've really been dealing with the culture of the building. And we've been looking at it in a couple of ways. I think a little bit later on, I think Brianna's going to talk about the differences between technical changes and cultural changes. And according to Anthony Muhammad, you need to have the cultural changes so the technical changes stick. Technical changes are more like scheduling, resources, having all of the facility things, all of the things that you need, the curriculum, the materials, all of those things. The cultural changes really are the things that make the difference, because people don't buy in, they don't believe what you're saying, they're going to find a way to make it fail. So since coming to the middle school, we've really tried to take a look at what is our reality. Jim Collins, in the book Good to Great, talks about confronting the brutal facts and never losing faith. He has a quote that's pretty telling. He says, "Yes, leadership is about vision, but leadership is equally about creating a climate where the truth is heard and the brutal facts confronted. There's a huge difference between the opportunity to have your say and the opportunity to be heard." So what we've tried to do is we've tried to create an opportunity for people to be heard, people to share things with us, and create a vision while we are creating the technical changes. Go to the next. We've been looking at assessment data for a very, very long time. We're going to go with our Iowa assessment data because that's what we're judged on frequently. When I talk about a flat line, you're going to see what I mean when I say flat line. The first, and I'll try to explain, and I'm sorry if it's hard for everyone to see, we took a look at the last 5 years of data. We just got back our 2017 data, and we went all the way back to 2013. So that first set of bar graphs represents the proficiency in our reading. And you can see that it ranges everywhere from, well, just from 81 to 86% of our students are proficient. So that's a little bit of growth, but it's still flat. We looked at our two subpopulations that we're really spending a lot of time working on and have been looking at for quite some time are our African American population and our free and reduced population. So taking a look at both of those in the area of reading, we have scores ranging from 52 to 59% of our students who are proficient in that area. And that's been, again, flat since the beginning of the time period. Free and reduced, we range from 59 to 68%, and that's a little bit up and down, but still pretty unremarkable. Next one. The score for math, the picture for math looks very much the same. If you take a look at the first two numbers, we had an 89% and a 90%. In the last 3 years, it's been 87% proficient. Now, a lot of schools would love that number. We're not satisfied with it, especially when we look at our subgroups. And our subgroups range from 62% up to 68, 57, 65. So there's some skipping around, but again, not a trend in one good direction. Free and reduced numbers, the same, 73%, 77%, 70%, up and down. In order to make a difference, you have to enact those two types of change, and you have to do them not once, not twice, not occasionally, but consistently, and consistently over time. So this group of people with me is very good about calming me down sometimes when I'm in too much of a hurry, and also taking a look at that big picture and saying what needs to happen in order to get the results that we need. So I'm going to give them credit. They came up with this great gardening analogy because I would kill anything that I would try to plant. So this analogy is not mine, but it's theirs. But I think it really speaks to why we do what we do and making sure that other things are in place before we take a look at sometimes the final output.
So as Pam was saying, this data is not new to any of us. I can speak as an instructional coach and a teacher at Ames Middle School. For the past 5 to 6 years, from my experience, these are things that we knew. And in fact, I believe it was January, we had a professional development day scheduled that ended up getting canceled due to weather. And the next whole staff meeting that we had after that, we did a shortened version of the same thing just to make sure that we were looking at these numbers once again and keeping them in front of our staff because we recognize that it's an ongoing issue. As part of that, one of the things that we asked our staff to do was, before showing each data point that we had gotten together for them, we said, write down what your assumptions are. What do you expect that you're going to see? And it might not surprise you that their assumptions were pretty well accurate. With a very few exceptions, we all knew what we were going to see on that data. And I think that was just evidence to say, we know. We've seen this time and time again. And in fact, we've been asking ourselves the question, but why? Why does this continue to happen? After all, we're trying new stuff. If you look at the latest educational research out there, we're doing it. And if we're not doing it, we're trying to do it. And so as we scratched our heads, we got the opportunity this past fall to go to the PLC Solution Tree Conference down in Des Moines. And as Pam was talking about, there was a really dynamic speaker there. His name is Dr. Anthony Muhammad. And he started talking about schools and change. And in particular, he is a researcher in the achievement gap. And it seemed to just kind of strike us. And we actually can't take credit for the garden analogy either. It was him who gave us that analogy. And he said education is like gardening. And every gardener knows that it's important to have good seeds. And those seeds are those technical changes, which Teresa is going to talk about here in just a moment. Those seeds are the changes that we've made over the past few years. We've tried to change our schedules. We've tried to align our planning time. We've created professional learning communities, any number of things, like we said, research-based, and we kept thinking, why though? Why are our numbers not changing? We're hearing from the professionals that this stuff works. We know that high-performing schools, this stuff works. And it wasn't until he said, you can have the best seeds in the world, but if your soil isn't good, then they're not going to grow to their full potential. They might get out of the ground a little bit, but they're not going to produce the way you would want them to. That soil is the culture, and that culture is comprised of the beliefs, assumptions, and attitudes collected by the whole of the group. And at that point, we got to thinking, what are our beliefs, assumptions, and attitudes that we hold in general when it comes to education, our students, and our role within all of that? And so our plan to share from here on out is to talk a little bit about the seeds that we've been planting, to talk about the tending to the soil that we're doing currently in regards to our culture, and also looking forward, kind of what we need to keep in mind as we continue forward down this path.
So we'll talk a little bit about some of those seeds. We've worked a lot of our focus on our PLCs. We've have students that are in tutorials, which is part of our efforts to meet the needs of students, whether they need extension, whether they need a remedial learning opportunity. It gives some students who struggle to keep up with their daily work an opportunity there as well. We also have our Tier 3 interventions and our developmental designs program focusing on culture. We've got just a real short video that we'd like to share related to one of those seeds, the tutorials.
My name is Leslie, and I'm in 6th grade. My name is Ava, and I'm in 6th grade. Hello, my name's Anthony. I'm a 7th grader at Ames Middle School.
I'm Candace. I'm Morgan.
Hello, my name is Jen and I'm a 7th grader from Ames.
Hi, I'm Evan, and I'm a 7th grader at Ames Middle School.
My name's Louise and I'm an 8th grade student at Ames Middle School.
I'm Sadie and I'm in 8th grade at the Ames Middle School.
My name is Maurice and I'm an 8th grade student at Ames Middle School.
I go to a lot of tutorials that include what clubs I'm in or activities I specifically like or enjoy. The ones that stand out to me the most are my mock trial tutorials and my rank conferences.
I was in Battle of the Book, so I went to a lot of those tutorials, and I go to a lot of silent reading tutorials since I like to read, and once in a while I'll go to writing tutorials.
I participated in Ludwig. Me too. I was there too. Remember?
I've been in a lot of study hall tutorials, and then like if you need extra help with something or you need help on a project.
I've been in PE tutorials, I've been in literacy, and probably Mrs. Moore class, the social studies.
The ones that stand out to me the most are my mock trial tutorials and my rank conferences. Because I like writing, I can go to tutorials and I can receive feedback from other people and improve my writing.
It helps you can get more time to study or get more time to do homework and things of that sort.
When I had I think 3 assignments not done because I wasn't here, I was absent, and I got all those done in one day. By the end of the day I turned them in and got my grade up. I really like the extra help with assignments because sometimes it can be a little confusing when they explain it in class, so just getting that extra help helps.
I usually go to a teacher named Mr. Pierce who helps with problems and has an easy way of explaining what to do and how to get out of them.
I've learned how to be almost a better person because I'm a student ambassador and we learned kind of how to welcome new students and things like that.
We work together. For a long time I've been going to Social Justice Council, which gives me an opportunity to learn from other people and experiences that they've been through and try to make myself a better person.
As you can see with some of the examples that are provided by our students, the tutorials provide a great variety of opportunity for our kids. And it's something that we feel is a cornerstone of our ability to meet the needs of those students. Go ahead.
So while really good seeds have been planted at the middle school, there was still some work that needed to be done to cultivate the soil. And this fall we formed a guiding coalition made up of administrators, teacher leaders, counselors, and team leaders as well. Really the purpose of the guiding coalition is to empower more leaders amongst our staff as we work together to find ways to enact our vision. Our most recent work has allowed us to take our conversations about our culture to our whole staff. And in the past few weeks, we've had several opportunities to address the cultural change that lies beneath the technical change. So thinking through a focus on the soil in addition to those seeds. We revisited our AMS vision that we created a few years ago as a staff, and we've added some guiding principles to help ground our work as we move forward.
I don't know if Brianna mentioned this, but for our guiding coalition, it's made up of about 16 people. It would be all our administrators, all our counselors, all our teacher leaders in our building, our grade level leaders in our building, as well as all our instructional coaches. I have to apologize because I, like Pam, am not a gardener, and I thought I was doing the soil part. So thank you. I'll just talk a little bit about next year then. With all the work that we've actually all already kind of hopefully clarified and made known to you, Our guiding coalition is going to work with our vision teams, and those are the people that I just stated are on the coalition team. We'll divide into kind of our areas of interest and maybe even expertise to help lead our PD, which will be the learning opportunities that will hopefully enact our vision. I should say in conjunction with our vision, I'd like to just briefly describe just some 4 really, we think, simple yet effective beliefs that we'll be working on. And the beliefs, again, have been over a number of at least a year and a half or 2 years in the making. And our coalition team has worked together. And I had to be honest with you, it sometimes elicits some pretty strong emotion when we talk about the beliefs, because we know that's where the culture has to begin and what we need to look at. Elicited emotions that are good, trying to answer the question or help us remember, why did we get into education in the first place? So it's kind of a deep conversation. But the coalition, again, will hopefully guide our professional development next year with these beliefs. And one is simply all students can learn at high levels. And our job is to make it happen. And we can't do it alone. We have to collaborate in order for that to work. And last but not least is all relationships matter, whether it's teacher to teacher, administrator to teacher, student to student, teacher to student, administrator to student. All relationships matter. And we hope and we know that that will make our culture even better and stronger and help those plants hopefully to grow. Other than that, I think Jeremy's going to talk a little bit about our vision.
So our guiding coalition has 5 vision areas where we will place our focus. The first is aligning instruction with assessment. That particular vision team is going to work on focusing to align our essential standards with engaging instruction, differentiated, and purposeful instruction. The second is meeting the needs of all students. This is where those personal relationships and connections come into play. It's our ability to engage our students with the school, and then focus on ensuring that we provide an equitable experience for our students. Next is the learning environment. And the learning environment team is going to work to meet the needs of students socially, emotionally, and academically. Because we understand what middle-level learners need, and we need to be able to provide that for them. We also recognize that students in the middle school are going to make mistakes, and that's a part of this particular team's work, is how are we going to, when they make those mistakes, how are we going to help them to learn and grow as a member of our community from those mistakes. Serving as a PLC and team of professionals, this is the collaborative effort. How can we improve? We know that we can. How can we improve the collaboration within the building from a colleague to colleague standpoint and administrator to teacher, and how can we work together to make sure that all of our students have the best opportunity and best experience at Ames Middle School they can. And finally, connecting with the community. This particular team is going to focus on continued improvement for meeting the needs of our students by partnering with families and the community. They're going to work to provide transparent communication about what's going on at school, and then also work to provide an opportunity to provide service and focus on that desire for improvement. So as Teresa stated, this has great implications for our work that we'll do next year. As we go into the school year, we're going to ask our staff members to choose one of these areas when they develop their professional development plans. Ask them to focus on one of these 5 areas and have that be what they can do to improve upon their own practice. And then we'll, with these vision teams, support that work. So that the goals that our teachers are setting are directly related to our building goals and are definitely connected to their own professional learning and the professional development that we provide.
just, we have recognized staff who already display, do, act out the vision statement. So we started out the year with, I think, a few of us nominated one person for each vision statement, and then from there, that group would nominate the next group of people that represented our vision statements. And we actually make it visual. We have a plaque near our front lobby that has their names on it and in regards to whichever vision statement they represent or do the best.
Just to kind of wrap things up, so Glenn Singleton and Curtis Linton wrote a book in 2006 titled Courageous Conversations About Race, a Field Guide for Achieving Equality in Schools. And in that, they outline that there's essentially 3 things that we have to have if we're really going to get this change that we're all wanting. The first is, of course, the practices, the things that we do every day individually and systematically, making sure that those align with those guiding beliefs that we have, and that all high-performing school districts and buildings do have. The second is passion, which becomes a little bit more elusive. Passion has to be strong enough, he says, or they say, to overwhelm institutional inertia, the resistance to change, which is natural, and a desire to maintain the status quo, which, as we've seen in our data, the status quo we're not really satisfied with. It's something that's been an issue for some time now. I think the last one, though, of the 3 is probably the most elusive and probably most difficult to really maintain when they start talking about persistence. And I'm going to just read the exact quote here because I can't say it better myself. It says, "Persistence at the institutional level is the willingness of a school system to invest time and energy over the long haul to fix inequality despite slow results, political pressure, new ideas, and systematic inertia." It really is. It's got to be over time. It's not a fad, a flavor of the month, the latest and greatest, the silver bullet. Sometimes we refer to it as in education.
Can you repeat
really
that?
sticking.
Can you repeat that quote? I want to hear it again, please.
Yep, I'll read it again.
Rather than
definitely.
wait until
Persistence at the institutional level is the willingness of a school system to invest time and energy over the long haul to fix inequality, despite slow results, political pressure, new ideas, and systematic inertia.
Thank you.
And with that, I think that's all we've got for you today. So thank you to the board and the community for your support, your time, and your energy. We look forward to working with you more in the future on that.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was very beneficial. We'll open up to the questions, comments from the board.
So what are the ways, I'm impressed with what I've heard, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and share. What are the ways the board can support the work that you are doing?
You can come and see for yourselves. I think for friends, that would be probably hopefully the most powerful. And I don't just mean, like, don't come at lunchtime, but go into classes or when teachers are doing the PLCs, tutorials, every piece of our building, really. I think that would be one thing that would show support. Think of a lot of things to buy. And we want to make these belief statements real visual throughout our building because we want kids to be a part of that and maybe use those belief statements when they are creating their own social contracts, which they do at the beginning of each year. So I wasn't kidding about, things up visual in our building.
I think one of the biggest things is just to continue with the focus. I've been here for 10 years, and probably the first 3 years I was here, there wasn't a lot of focus. There wasn't a lot of district-wide focus. There was a lot of building of autonomy, which might have worked at one point in time, but I really appreciate as a building leader that I'm moving forward and my colleagues are moving forward as well. I know what's happening at SOAR. I know what's happening at Mitchell. I know what's happening at the high school, and we're doing the same thing moving forward. So I just want to encourage you to help protect that focus for these people who will be doing the work.
And I appreciate that, Pam. As I reflect upon the conversation for the last couple of months, the thing that comes to mind is the communication element. And it's amazing how it's great to see passion from our parents and from our community, given the results, and they're wanting to see change. But also, a lot of times they're not aware of what we're doing, and so it's kind of eye-opening to them once they understand and hear some of the things that we're doing. I'm just wondering how we can better try to align that communication on a broader scale. I don't think it's good to have presentations like tonight, but also it's how can we more timely reach out in a systematic way. How could you see that be put into practice?
Again, I don't think that's a one-time, one-shot thing. That's something that we've spent a lot of time having conversations about, and having conversations where people, sorry, microphone?
Yeah.
I'm using my teacher voice. All right, I don't think that that's a one-shot thing. That's something that we need to continue in a lot of ways and a lot of strategies. And that's the thing that we hear the most often. Well, I didn't know about that, or you didn't communicate that. We have Infinite Campus that we use as our primary ways of mass communication. And, oh, I get too many of those. I don't pay attention to those. Oh, I don't get enough of those. I don't read those. Websites, Twitter, like some of these younger people are into a little bit more effective electronic communication. But it's just putting that word out. And again, we would encourage anyone and everyone who has questions or conversations to come and see, as Teresa was encouraging you. Come and see what we do. Sit down and have a visit with us. If you're not sure why your child is coming home with a grade, why they're coming home, like what is tutorial, what is this about, why are you in AI, what is AI? We definitely want to clear that up, and we want to provide a lot more communication. We're open to any other ideas.
And I would add to that too, just backing up one of our slides. When we think about our vision areas, one of the fifth bullet there is connecting with the community. And so we've recognized that, and we've got teacher leaders, and next year we'll have staff joining that team to find creative ways to communicate more frequently with the community. And that one in particular goes back to when we think about our guiding principles that Teresa was reading off earlier. We recognize that collaboration is the only way that we're going to maximize the potential in our students and ourselves. And we believe that relationships matter. So that goes to the community and everybody involved.
Couple questions. How long have you guys been doing the tutorial? How many years? Is it just this year or 2 years?
Third? I think this is our third.
Third year? Okay, great, because I've heard wonderful things about it. And as a former teacher, all of the, professional development and the PLC work that you guys, I commend you a lot, and, laying this out. One thing that I do want to ask is, and this goes back to the gentleman that made a comment during the forum about the inputs and outputs and such. Next year, can you think about an input that's going to involve students more directly, that is going to lead towards an outcome that you're looking forward to achieving? What would be an example of that input?
So if we take a look at aligning instruction and assessment, that might be one area that a group of teachers forming a vision team would be interested in. And when we align our instruction and our assessment, and we make sure that we're providing feedback along the way, that provides that opportunity for students to grow. And so there might be an example of that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I mean this as a compliment, and it's not going to sound like it, all right? Because you said that you're not okay with the status quo part of it, but the test scores show status quo, and that's the part. And so this is partly more comment than question, I guess, in this first part. But that's the part that I don't think some people see, is that desire and that passion from staff to make changes that don't maintain status quo. And so I appreciate that, even though I'm pointing out the fact that you guys showed it right there at the beginning, that first slide. The test scores I mean, you kept saying flatline, and every single one of them, as far as I'm concerned, showed flatline. There was one that had a little bit of growth for the free and reduced that, might be significant, but, who knows, maybe next year that'll come back down, and we'll see that it's truly a flatline over a 6-year window. I know that there's some steps that are being taken behind the scenes to begin that conversation with the racial disparity. Principal Stanglin, I think I have a unique perspective on the past, whatever it be, 8, 9, 10 years, I guess, maybe, at middle school, because had, first kid going through there however many years ago it was, and the last kid just completed his time at Ames Middle School last year. The cultural change that you've taken care of as far as school atmosphere, I've been very impressed with, and I've seen it firsthand through my own kids. I've seen it firsthand as a school board member coming into that building and seeing the things that are being done. What can we do to help make that, to help spur along this cultural change to eliminate this racial disparity inside your building, inside our district? And I know steps are being taken. I know that's a pretty heavy question, but what else? What can we do to help?
That might be what keeps me up all night, every single night, maybe. And that is a very fair question, and that's what we've been struggling with this entire time. I think Aaron's comment about persistence, and I don't think any of us are patient people. So we've had this multitude of pushback conversations with each other. We're doing these things. We're creating those technical changes. We're working on the culture as we're doing the technical changes. Things don't happen overnight as much as I would love to have them. I will point out a couple of other data points that we didn't add on to the presentation. One of the things that you alluded to, the cultural changes. We've reduced our failing grades by over half. We used to fail about 400, we have 400 failing grades every single year. We're about 160 now. We had to create a culture where it wasn't okay to, I taught it, they just didn't learn it. And that's been a long-standing culture and belief system for some teachers. In fact, we continue to have discussions about that. What's the purpose of schooling? Is the purpose to sort and select? We don't think so. The purpose is for every student to achieve at high levels. So we've continued that. We also talk about our discipline referrals. Someone's misbehaving, I'm just going to write a referral and get them out of the room. Those have been eliminated by 2/3. So we have teachers who are using developmental designs, who are engaging in that connecting with their students and understanding that quality relationships matter. Those things are hard to gauge and they're hard to quantify. Yet we see positive changes in our school data and in the way that we do business. So just hang on tight. This group of people has it together. They know what they're doing. Staff are getting there, and they are very much on board, and they're very much wanting the community and wanting you to see the great work that they're doing. So I do appreciate your compliment that wasn't a compliment, that sort of was a compliment.
I guess I just want to make kind of a statement. We live in a day and age where everything is instant access. We have social media everywhere we go, 24/7 news streams. It seems like you can't go anywhere without getting whatever you want right now. And I think that's led to a culture where people believe in instant gratification. And that's why people are so confused with this whole thing, is because why aren't we fixing it? Why aren't we fixing it? Why isn't it resolved? I just, it takes time. I think we're doing the right things. I think we're trying to move forward. But culture doesn't change in the snap of a finger. It's not an overnight thing. It's something that has to be learned, developed, and nurtured. And I guess for me, I just want to hear that quote you read one more time, because that thing is so relevant.
And actually, forward that out, if you could send that to us, or have Dr. Taylor send that to us, send it through some other channels, I'd like to have that one.
Yeah, we can do that. Talked about persistence. Persistence at the institutional level is the willingness of a school system to invest time and energy over the long haul to fix inequality, despite slow results, political pressure, new ideas, and systematic inertia.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next topic tonight is policies for discussion. Rodney and Tim.
I know that there was a policy voted on last time that how that happens.
Thank you. We'll do that right now.
Thank you.
So
Is
if
that-
any-
Instantly, once it's approved, it goes into action, correct?
Yeah, unless otherwise specified, once it's on the agenda as an action item and approved by the board, it goes active at that moment. So the next meeting following that policy
Which would be tonight.
be active, which is tonight.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to speak on this topic, I guess raise your hand.
Come forward.
Thank you for noting our procedural, because I kind of lobbied a lot for this procedure right here, and so I appreciate you paying attention.
If you could just-
no, thanks.
If you could just state your name and address.
Gail Seiler, 420 Briarwood Place. Yeah, I just am going to make a few brief comments. Thank you very much. I know some of the folks who were presenting, and I appreciate their efforts. I would just like to emphasize a couple things. The Singleton quote is a good one, but I'd also emphasize a slightly different part of it, because the other part of it that I think is worth noting is that it says the school system must invest time and energy. So when I say system, to me that speaks at an institutional level, not just individual heroic efforts of teachers trying to do what they feel they should do, which is laudable, but I think this is why the Inclusive Ames group keeps asking for a board action, a board resolution, some leadership prioritizing it by the board, because I think that's the other part of the Singleton quote that's important. And I think there are things that the board can do specifically to support this work, but even to do more than to support it, to lead it. And I think that's what's needed. I would also just make one other comment, that I think we need to make sure we're asking the question not about all students, what can we do to help all students to learn, but specifically if we're concerned about the gap between, for example, white students and African American students, we need to ask that question. Why are African American students not excelling, not thriving? And that may be a different answer than why are all students not learning as well as they could. You arrive at different actions and different conclusions if you ask a slightly different question. I don't mean to say this in a critical way, but that approach of thinking about meeting the needs of all students is what in the literature is called a colorblind approach. And there's much, much evidence that shows in educational research that that's not the approach that works, and that's not the best approach to take in trying to address disparities like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, we'll move on to our next item. Policies for discussion, Rodney and Tim.
So the policy committee got together not that long ago. I'm not sure I remember the exact date. And we talked about these policies. Most of these policies are just language changes, bringing slight clarification within the policy itself. I've got some notes here on a few of them. EFA, the procurement for school meal programs, is a brand new policy, and that came about, if I'm not mistaken, because of legal said we needed it, and I believe also was it the Iowa School Board Association. And Chris, maybe you can give clarification, please.
The wellness policy, which is also on in the procurement, are two of a series of new policies or changes to our current policies that will be coming before you before the end of June. They are requirements coming down from the Federal Department of Agriculture in regards to the National School Lunch Program. So they put a new, we have to have reviewed our wellness policy, even though it's within the 5 years, by June 30th. We have to have a procurement policy in place by June 30th, and then there'll be a new unpaid fee policy that will be coming forward that has to be separated out of one of our policies into its own. So it's all it's all mandates coming down from the Federal Department of Agriculture.
Chris, asking a question, I didn't ask this in policy then, so if the board as a whole votes down some of this in a couple of weeks, we still have to pass these policies somehow prior to June 30th, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are up for review next year.
Yep.
Our school lunch program is reviewed every 3 years.
Yep.
Every school in the state, whether they're up for review next year or not, has to put the procurement plan in place. But it will be a ding on our review.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the board just refused to comply with a federal mandate, if that would mean they could eventually take our school lunch program away, I don't know.
I guess my point would be that if anybody has objections with any of the other policies, we'll need to
The wellness-
approve these somehow before that date, just so we are, I mean, if we're going to stay in compliance, and so we'd probably just have to move to eliminate, to split these into different
Yeah, the
approvals, I guess.
procurement one especially legal counsel worked with IASB. They developed the procurement policy for every district in the state. It's just boilerplate federal language. The wellness, we're moving some stuff to the administrative rules. We have a meeting this week with the wellness committee to finalize that, because they also have to review our educational goals, which are part of the wellness administrative rules. And so we'll have that before it comes back before the board as well.
I would recommend that we make sure that when those come forward for action, that they are individualized, just on the off chance that for whatever reason we weren't to approve the packet, we could still approve those individuals and move them forward. I think that would be the prudent thing to do.
I'll agree with that, so that makes, according to our new policy, 2 board members that want it on, that way on the agenda. If you guys can make sure that we note that when you guys get to agenda setting for that meeting, that we separate out the ones that Chris says we have to pass by June 30th as a separate item, and then the other ones will be a different item. Okay.
Other policies that we have GLC, which is Certified Staff Professional Development Opportunities, and that one just had a major add in language with regards to professional development with teachers, and then more so with implementation in the classroom of that professional development. Just wanted to point that out, as it was a little bit more intense than most of these. Policy IF, Curriculum and Assessment Development. A little bit of a rewrite with regards to some of the language and understanding. The big add to that is a diagram is now shown that helps to bring some clarity to the term curriculum, as we've known through the last year or two that there's been a lot of debate on what that word really means. I know for me, I would like to see actual language in there and not necessarily the diagram, but the diagram definitely goes to further understanding as to what curriculum is.
Can I stop you?
Yeah, go
All
for
right. I guess the one point on that part with that discussion of curriculum, I mean, that was Director Franzen and I had the privilege, and I've mentioned it here before, that we sat in on the principal PLCs when they had that conversation on coming up with this definition, and it was great to see the principals have this active professional conversation, and this whole conversation was about curriculum was nearly unanimous in that room. It seemed like every professional in the room almost was in agreement on that definition. So it was our leadership team of principals completely agreed with the definition as to how it was put together then.
The next one I've got a note on here is IGDF, and that one is student fundraising activities. And the reason I pointed that out is just it brought clarification to the activity program fundraising paragraph. So if there was any question on that particularly, we'll certainly stop and talk. The last one that I had a note on here is KBC. And that would be publicity and news media relations. And this is more of a Kathy Hansen deal here, because this is a rewrite, very extensive rewrite. In fact, this policy went from very small to very, very big and fulfilled. And I think a lot of that has to do more with the board goal with open communications, as well as policies that we have in place stating we would approve a media plan and other things. And this goes to further develop and create that process so that there's more clarity in how it should work. Kathy, do you have anything to add on that?
It does add some language to clarify social media policies and information about the difference between media permission, social media permission, yearbooks and directories, so that parents understand. And we're also looking at eventually getting a policy about the difference between those permissions and video and research in the classrooms as well. So.
I had one comment on KBC, the second page 1 of 1. I might want to combine those, but under the media permission for students, I was a little concerned. It says the district reserves the right to use a student's image, work, or performance to promote the district, and it goes on. And it says unless a parent or guardian requests an exemption for each student during each school year using the media permission exemption form. I have struggled with that because I think that onus should be on us as a district to ask for permission instead of relying on parents to, for one, know they need to request an exemption to not have their students publicly shown. So it's just a small little change, but I was worried that we're pushing that thought off.
If I could speak to that a little bit.
Actually, just a minute, don't we have, as part of the enrollment paperwork, we have a form that parents fill out every year?
Well, they do that online, but I'm going to let Kathy
go ahead.
address
Yeah.
that.
Right. Since we have online registration, what we run into is a lot of parents mistakenly check no when they didn't mean to. So we want to make it very clear that not providing media permission is a separate step because of the online registration process. Back in the days when it was a paper form, it was actually easier. It was all in the same form, yes or no. But now
it was
that
clearer.
Right, it was clearer, right.
Okay, so now that we've gone to the online, people aren't as clear about what that actually
Yes.
means. Okay,
So
we need
many
to highlight
times-
some better. Okay.
Yes.
Again, it pushes that responsibility to the parent and not us as a district to get it done. And I guess I have concern with that. Any other thoughts? All right. Well,
No, I don't, no.
okay. Sounds good.
I might take a second to mention that I have addressed policy JEC with our school's attorney, especially going after the question that if law enforcement does appear in one of our buildings, can we, as a school district, if we can't reach the parent, can't reach an attorney, and they are in such a hurry, can we be acting as an adult with that student during an interview or interrogation? And the answer to that question goes back a long ways into law to something called in loco parentis, and the answer is yes, we can. We are the adult and, in essence, the parent for that child while they are in school. So under all circumstances except Department of Human Services, if they request that that interview be alone, they are the only ones that can do that. With
That's in
all of the
regards to the-
situations, we can provide an adult or will have an adult with the student, even if we can't contact or get a hold of the parent.
Right.
That's in regards to the school admissions
That's correct.
policy, which is,
Yeah.
which is not on here.
Right.
Okay.
Updating
I
you
just-
on the
I was
list
just
that
making
we
sure I
had
wasn't
last
missing something in my notes
No.
that we were talking about that tonight because.
Yeah, that was on the list from last week, yeah.
Yeah, that's going back to policy for our next policy committee, if I remember right. from 2
That's
weeks ago,
correct,
right?
since we opened the door and we
All right,
talked
thank you.
about this. Just to clarify,
I don't think we
Dr.
can- I don't-
Taylor, what
wait,
what
no, I
you're
don't
doing.
think we can,
Excuse me,
Tim.
he brought it up, and he opened the door, and
I don't
now
think we as a
now
board
it's
can
open.
discuss that.
Actually, yes, we can.
But we can, Louis, though. It's not on the agenda.
And
It's not on the
he brought up
agenda.
the point.
Dr. Taylor has
You don't
the right
even
to
know what
bring
I'm going to
something
say, Tim.
up.
What are you going
You
to
said
say?
it's
Go
in
ahead.
regards
I
to that
just
policy.
wanted to be assured that it's going to be then put on the next agenda.
Yes, it will be there on May 8th.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well,
Other discussion? All right, I'll open up the public forum. Anyone wishing to speak? No? All right. Moving on to our committee reports, updates from what was provided.
Well, since we're on committee reports, then I guess I would ask what we will need to have, the policy committee does not have, do we have an assigned time for the next meeting?
No, we don't. Part of what
Okay,
I
we will
was-
need to get that assigned very quickly then, because
Yeah.
that's.
You gotta work that back through you and Rodney
Yeah.
to
We will
email.
need, yeah. So if you guys can get with us and you know, get us time options, because if that's coming back 2 weeks from now, obviously we need soon to have this next policy committee meeting.
It is not on the agenda, but I just want to remind the public that our next Teaching and Learning Committee meeting is this Wednesday at 9 a.m. We announced it last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, but I just want to remind everyone, the agenda's on the website, but it was not on our list, so.
We had a pretty lengthy facilities meeting where we were presented preliminary work from Team HALA, so that will be good for board consumption at a work session next Monday.
And as part of what Director Esposito just said, we will be moving that work session that was originally scheduled on May 15 relative to the renovation or construction of a new Ames High School building to next Monday, which is May 1 at 6:30.
Here?
Yes, it will be here.
I just want to add that, not add, but point out under legislative liaison, a couple of the legislature finished things up way late. Actually, was it in the morning Saturday, I think, when they wrapped things up. A couple things did pass that was beneficial. We did get the limited home rule legislation that went through, so that was something that we as a board actually was in our top priorities.
So what's that entail?
Pardon me?
Do you know roughly what that entails?
It provides us more home rule, and which we've never had, and the details. No, I can't give you the run details, but that did pass the legislature. That's actually, it was sleeping there, and I was surprised that they actually pulled it up and it went through. So, of course, the governor has to sign it.
Which file was that, Louis?
Let me pull it up. We just got an email about it today.
And while you're pulling that up, I'd just encourage, and Director Rosser, since you're our IASB delegate, to see if you can spur along any kind of leadership training from IASB regarding these changes too. I'm sure they're going to come forward with some information to help us.
Yeah.
But-
Oh, definitely. The home rule bill was HF 573. And will provide limited home rule authority for us now. So that did pass. Unfortunately, the education omnibus bill that was being worked on did not get through because the House and the Senate couldn't come to an agreement on things. And also, unfortunately, the penny sales tax extension from 2029 to 2050 did not pass. So we're going to be working hard over this next year to see that bill passed in the next session. That's going to be very critical to where we're going with the high school, no matter what decision we make. And hopefully that will happen. The last thing I'll note is which I'm hoping is a good sign. You know, there was discussion in the last session, and it was brought up in the latter part of this session regarding the question of water quality and tapping in to the penny sales tax to partially fund water quality issues in the state. That did not go anywhere. It died again in this session, and I'm going to hope that we continue to ask parents and others, and we'll keep working hard to make sure that they don't try to take a portion of that sales tax to put it towards water. I think that would be a real shame for that to happen. But this was just a very brief update that we got from the results. IASB is still sifting through the bills, and they're going to give us a more full report in when the governor signs, because keep in mind that even though many of these things passed the legislature's houses Friday, or excuse me, Saturday morning, the governor still needs to sign them, and or in some instances he has a line item veto power that he could utilize in some of them also. So we really won't know until after he signs all these bills and takes his final actions.
Any other updates? All right, open a public forum. Anyone would like to talk? Yeah. If you just state your name and address, please.
Angela Shaw, 1707 Duff Avenue. I was just wanting to have an update on Diversity Advocacy Committee and when they've met last and what has been done.
Thank you.
On the what? Diversity advocacy, you're
The last one we met was with the students from ISU last spring, or last fall, I'm sorry. We were hoping to meet in March, but we did not. Actually, I need to get in
We have a
touch with
meeting
Shelby
in
Ullman to
April.
see what, yeah, or in April. Yeah.
All right, moving on to consent. I'll take a motion.
Move approval of consent items as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Briggs. Discussion. Dr. Taylor?
There's minutes from the April 10 board meeting, claims and payroll, and financial reports from Chris Stensland. We also have a personnel report, and sitting in the back of the room is the request of resignation of Pam Stanglin as the principal at Ames Middle School. We were waiting today to make sure she got her contract back from her new employer, which is the AEA out of Fort Dodge. She'll become the regional director of the area education agency there. But Pam, thanks for all your years of service, and don't forget we're still here. We also have gifts to the district, and there's a pretty nice list here. Again, there's a number of gifts actually that were given to the district towards the demolition of the old Edwards building, including $25,000 from Douglas Proval, $10,000 from David Martin and Stephen Godfrey, $10,000 from Sue and Alvin Ravenscroft, $5,000 from Robert Lippert and Nevadita Pandit, $2,000 from Joel and Andy Barber, $1,000 from Mark and Brian Robarth, $500 from John McClelland and Linda Severson, and also $500 from Diane and Dean Obrecht. There's cash and cash in the amount of $100 from Nickel and Associates to the district. So thank everybody for their donations on these gifts, and we'll make sure you get a letter showing our appreciation. There's a pretty good list of contracts that are there, but they're pretty similar because they are supporting the backpack program both at Mitchell and at Edwards School. We have cooperative agreements for the placement of student teachers with the University of Northern Iowa and also with Morningside College for the 17-18 school year. There's an agreement with Gallagher Benefit Services for actuarial services for the GASB 45 compliance from Chris, and a professional development agreement with Discipline Associates, LLC from Darcy Cousins. We also have some continuous open enrollment and a receive and file of the annual report from Dr. Mike Avis relative to International Exchange Students Report.
I would just like to note, I received an email from Thomas Garton. He just asked that I clarify the record. So back on December 19th, he and Rita and Ava and Cora Garton made a $300 donation to the district, and it was shown from Tim and Tara Garton. He says it happens all the time, but I just wanted to set the record straight from someone else.
I would add, and it's a really small thing, but on the minutes, my abstention from the personnel report, if that could be updated and noted, that'd be great.
Okay.
I just want to say that approving this is something that will be sore for me because I've known Pam for about 25 years. And I have a very high opinion of her, and I appreciate everything that she's done for this district. But I also appreciate that Pam is making a decision that is in her best interest. And I look forward to seeing what wonderful things she moves on to and accomplishes. On the other end, I appreciate all of the gifts that we continue to receive with regards to the Edwards Neighborhood Association and their efforts to help offset the demolition costs that we are going to incur.
Yeah, all those donations get us one step closer to being able to turn that over. I hope they continue. It'd be a great thing. Principal Stanglin, I'll miss your professionalism. What you did in that building was a great influence for my third child. It makes me wish that you'd been there for the others, and you did a fabulous job for us. Congratulations.
Any other discussion?
I'll just say at that, Pam, thanks. My daughter and Morgan and Tony have had the pleasure of being with you, and my wife and I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Item 17.
I move the board approve the 2017-2018 general fund budget and modifications as presented.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, second by Rosser. Discussion.
Hope I didn't get anybody confused with the red as the modification and an upgrade relative to support salaries for next year, but I'll leave it at that and see where we go.
All right, proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Item 18.
I move the board approve the new open enrollment applications as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Franson. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Item 19.
I move that the teaching staff appearing on the attached list be reappointed for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Rosser. Discussion.
As a matter of merit, I will be abstaining from this vote as it impacts someone who's close to me.
I would just like to say, I think we have some of the best staff. We do have the best staff in the state. I continually talk to people in the community, and it's wonderful to see the support that our community has for our staff. And I told someone just the other day that I don't think I could ever be a teacher. The amount of dedication you have to have day in and day out to work with kids and to help them reach their potential is just amazing. So I'm always in awe in this profession, so thank you. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 6-0 with one abstention. Item 20.
I move the board approve change orders 1 and 2 to the contract with Iowa Earthworks for the Edwards Elementary Play Area Improvements Project in, not 10, but in the amount of add $2,723.13 and add $2,400 respectively.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, second by Rasmussen. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Item 21.
I move the board approve the agreement with the Nature Conservancy, the City of Ames, and the district to equal share the cost for culvert repair at the Ames High Prairie.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, second by Rasmussen. Discussion.
I was with Jerry. Jerry's not here.
No, Jerry actually is sick, so I let him go home tonight.
Yeah. So I was with Jerry the day we went out there with the Nature Conservancy and the engineers and folks from the city to take a look at that problem back there, and it seriously is a problem. I think what's been worked out and the sharing costs are very reasonable, and it's a fairly permanent fix, and it's going to really address some things. Now, there's some other issues relating to drainage that will have to be dealt with in the future, but to really prevent more damage to what's going on down there, this fix on the culvert will really help.
Dr. Taylor, how do we utilize that area in the classroom?
We do have some classes that go out there, and there's all kinds of pollinators and things that we're doing, both in biology especially, but in some of our science classes, so they do get out there quite a bit.
Any other discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. Last one here, item 22, this went on late and we didn't actually, there's a motion. It's out there. Item 22, I'll take a motion.
I move the board re-engage with city leaders and staff relative to a joint venture on a new indoor community school swimming pool.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, second by Franson. Discussion.
So I'd like to address this first, since I was pointed out by one of the members of the public, and I wish more of the public was here so that they could hear some of these comments. 2 years ago this summer, I sat at a table and wrote notes when some of these kids approached us as a member of the Parks and Rec Commission and shared thoughts about what we needed for a competitive swimming pool. So it is difficult to sit here because I am not a patient person. It is difficult to sit here now almost 2 years later and see these same kids coming up here. So I want the kids that are not here anymore, hopefully they're home studying, and the family members and the community members that came tonight to speak, I get it. I know that the situation is real and we need to move. So understand, I get that. I also want you to be aware of the reason I seconded this and the reason that I will approve this is because my personal timeline for this is not long. I believe that we need to listen to this feasibility study and hear what may be a potential opportunity for us. But then I think if we decide that it's not something that we believe will serve our students, then we do move forward. So my timeline is not long. When I hear 8th graders say that they will be long gone before a new pool comes in, I don't agree with that. Because I want something to keep moving. And I know that if we should move forward with the city, it would have to go to a bond issue, so I get that. But I don't plan to be patient at this point, and I plan to continue to encourage our staff and city staff to continue to move forward on this. When I learned of the level of concerns with the air quality issues, that concerns me, and I'm appreciate that Jerry, he's not here, but I appreciate that he has been working to address that because I do believe that we owe that to our kids and our families. But I would like us to continue to march forward. I do believe that it is worthy of looking at. When we learned this spring that there was potential opportunity to offset these costs in a lease agreement, and not pay for this through our general fund, I am interested in identifying if that may be an opportunity. For those of you that are not aware, although I think those here are aware, our general fund, 80% of that is expected to cover our teacher staff salaries and benefits. That leaves 20% to just run this business. That's costs, that's copies in classrooms, that's utilities. So we really have to move forward in a very strategic manner as we manage that general education fund. And so that's why I do desire to learn more and see if there would be an opportunity with the city. And I will tell those, especially the ACAC and high school swim coach that is here, I don't have the knowledge, and that's why I said to Jason last week, tell me what you need. I'm not a swimmer, and I'm not going to pretend that I know what you need. I certainly hope that ACAC and those that know swimming will have a seat at the table to be able to share what those needs are so that you can do some of those things that you desire.
I'd like to weigh in because I think it kind of adds to Director Franzen's comments. I think it was Carla Weiner that was speaking, and maybe I misunderstood her point, but she commented that if we explore this option with the city again, that we have to keep a Plan B in motion, and maybe I butchered what she was saying there. I'd actually go a step further than that. That if we as a collective body vote in a little bit to re-engage with the city, I think Plan A has to stay. That we need to keep a Plan A moving forward. The facilities is working towards building a pool on our own. That should be Plan A right now. If at some point the city option becomes viable, fine, maybe we do go with Plan B. I'm fine with that, but I don't think we can afford to sit back and wait to see if a bond issue passes without keeping a Plan A of knowing where we're at on our own timeline. We have a responsibility to these students and athletes and parents to be working towards building a healthy environment for our kids to be in. And so that has to be Plan A. That probably means that I'm going to get pulled aside by the mayor and councilman the next time I see them again, like I was last week, and chastised for some of my comments at an earlier meeting, but I'll worry about that later. Another thing that we have to do, and a few of the parents pointed it out, if this is the route that we go as a collective, the contract with the city has been lopsided in the city's favor. The district has had no authority to set scheduling. The district has had no authority to try and enact any change. And the city looks at ACAC as a problem and a liability. They're their biggest customer for the pools, by far. And they're looked at as a nuisance. And if this is the route we go, we have to take a stand for ACAC's sake to make sure that they are represented fairly in this agreement. And if that means that we have somebody that's assigned to working with the city and setting the schedule more reasonably, then that's what we have to do, because right now, I think the city would prefer that there wasn't a swim club. I mean, they've threatened to kick them out multiple times. I've had 3 swimmers go through that. I know some of the things that have happened inside that building that were silly acts by teenage boys or girls, actually, and it's upset city staff, and they've made threats to kick the club out of the pool because they don't like some of the things that happen. We have to, as a group, take a stand that these kids are our kids. This club is serving our best interests. It is giving us students that come into the high school. It increases our enrollment because we have people that open enroll for academic and athletic reasons. We need to lobby in their part. We need to put something in place to protect our students, because those middle school and elementary students do become our high school students. And we all know what Spence's attitude is about active kids and kids that are engaged in extracurricular activities, have that connection to their building, and become better students. So for that reason, we have to take a stand.
Hey, Luke and Dr. Taylor, it just might be helpful to get some more context from your conversations and what that's been related to timeline, related to how this came back around. And sure. Everybody will have their say, I'm sure, but that would help me.
So, as you point out, Dr. Taylor and I have been meeting with staff, city leadership, the mayor and Steve Shanker for 4 years now, trying to find a solution. And the hard thing with this is, as we discussed today, is we're dealing with our whole student population. And so we need to look at it through that lens and making sure that we're providing the best experience broadly. I'm getting off tangent. Historically, we got together to figure out, okay, what can we put together that would potentially be feasible for a joint partnership? As we worked through that, there was an opportunity with the Healthy Life Center to bring Heartland Senior Services into the mix. Through a joint campus, there was a lot of enthusiasm with the parties at the table, which included Mary Greeley, not DMEC at the time, but Iowa State, the city, Heartland, and then us, to put a really cool concept together that would be intergenerational and would meet the needs of our community. As we went through that discussion over the last probably 18 months, it was pretty obvious to me that we were a hindrance to that moving forward. So there was a joint meeting of all those parties, administrative boards, last winter, to talk about that concept. And I was there to discuss why we elected to pull out, because I felt that we were being a hindrance to move it forward for them. So at that time, we were under the assumption that we would have to use our general fund regardless of whether we're leasing space or operating our own pool. So from a financial standpoint, there's really no benefit for us to enter into a partnership where we couldn't control, and then also would have to still spend out of the general fund, which you go to pay for staff. And so that's what led us to kind of pulling back. But after further discussion, which Elisa mentioned, a month or so ago, we had legal counsel review everything and provided confirmation that we could use PEPL or 1 cent money to pay for a long-term lease. And what seemed, I thought, a great opportunity is this is just what Ankeny did with DMAC. So DMAC last year built a pool facility that Ankeny ended up contributing capital. They also entered into a loan to repay, to provide additional capital, but they didn't have to bring as much capital to the table. And also they had operating expenses for the life of that lease. And I think it's like a 20-year lease, if I recall. And so it allowed the Ankeny School District to use a different bucket of money to help support a great extracurricular program for their students. And so I thought, wow, we should look at this again. So right now we pay about $50,000 a year from our general fund to support the program. In estimates, I know Dr. Taylor provided some word to the board. So in looking at things, we've seen anywhere from $200,000 from our consultant, and then it's been talked about what Limar is doing. So we also asked Limar for their budgets, which they provided. So their operational costs totaled $123,000 last year. And what we did is Chris did a comparison of what the Ames equivalent would be. And pretty much the main difference is their electric charge. They pay 6.5 cents per hour, or whatever kilowatt hour, where we pay 10 cents. So that's the only difference between the 123 that they spend currently and the 153 that's in our current budget. We've talked with ACAC for a long time about bridging that gap. And I think it's wonderful to partner with groups in the community to help create a vision, because we're all trying to move in the same direction. I've shared with Jason the reservation I have a little bit with partnering with a nonprofit, as those things can change pretty quickly. Iowa City is a good example of, Iowa City had a similar program that ended up having to collapse, based on what I know, because University of Iowa put a program in place. And so anytime a governmental entity is partnering with any type of organization, be it nonprofit or for-profit, there's risks to that venture. And the hard part I struggle with here is the risk is going to be the burden of our students if it doesn't work. And again, there's no disrespect to ACAC, the staff, the kids, the parents, but I really struggle with the notion of having that risk being on our students, because if for whatever reason something happens and they're not there, they've committed $45,000 to $50,000 and potentially more if they can get things to work out from a meat standpoint. If they go out of this picture, all of a sudden we have $153,000 to have to cover. And the hard part for me is this is a 30 or 40 year commitment that we're making, and the hard part is we're not receiving the funding from the State House to support additional funding for public education. So that's, in my opinion, why it's taken so long, because we're trying to wrestle with this funding issue. We can build it, you're right, but we just can't operate it. And from a business standpoint, that risk to me is pretty great. So I agree with what Tim was saying regarding needing to move forward with Plan A. What I would propose doing is, I'm going to support this motion, but what I want to do is have the school board, whether it's next week or in another work session, figure out what's Plan A and Plan B, and what do those ramifications look like today. I've talked extensively to the city about trying to develop a business plan or feasibility study that brings in partners like ACAC. Jason met with Elisa and I and some city council members last week to talk about creating this vision. We as elected leaders need to create that vision. The city council and the school board at the last meeting directed staff to have that conversation, which they did last week. So again, I think this is an opportunity, but I also agree that we need to be able to move in the event something doesn't go right with the city. I think we need to decide and draw a line in the sand of what is our pain tolerance. Is that pain tolerance $75,000 a year? Is it $150,000? Whatever that number comes back at, I'm fine with, but I think we need to have that discussion because we haven't yet. We've all just pretty much relied on Dr. Taylor and I to talk through this, and we haven't made progress. So a long-winded statement, but that's where we're at today, where the city manager said they're going to move forward with the feasibility study. The city council members asked Elise and I to bring this forward to put it on the agenda because they wanted confirmation from the school board that we wanted to re-engage them. This is not an endorsement of this is what we're doing, period. It's just, let's explore this opportunity. We talked about a 4-month window of getting this thing figured out. During that 4 months, I would like to have the school board, again, figure out Plan A and Plan B. That way we can move.
I'd add the one, just because we had so many parents come and talking about this, and I spoke with a few of them in the crowd prior to this, to the meeting tonight. My conversation with Mayor Campbell and Councilman Nelson, what they told me is that the plan that they are wanting to see move forward includes a 25 stretch pool that will be kept at cooler temperatures, and then in a separate room inside the building, a smaller 25 that will be kept at warmer temperatures. And so it would meet the diverse needs of a lot of different swimmers. I think the swim community, every person that I've heard from in the swim community has not heard that part of the plan. I mean, they are all just under the impression that it'll be a pool very similar to what we have at Ames High right now. And so if that is truly part of the city's plan, I mean, I guess, I guess I'd want to see that in writing. I mean, that was a conversation, an impromptu conversation at a meeting that I was at for another purpose, that they pulled me aside. That was what they said. I've never seen that in a plan, and clearly none of the swim parents in this town have seen that in a plan. Is that truly part of the plan?
No. So Dr. Taylor, what did you learn from your discussions?
I did visit with Steve Shanker for about an hour, and our basic conversation was, what do you need, what do we need? And it was more of a dance. There were no commitments made at that point. I wanted to point out there is actually a Plan B in place, and I had a very, very nice meeting actually with Sue and also with Mike from ACAC about the financial thing. Mike's even said he'll come in and scrub the pool down every day and do it himself for nothing. But, that's the kind of the enthusiasm and the passion that's involved in this. I think as the discussions continue on with the city, we're going to know very, very rapidly whether it's really something that's going to work out. But I was very encouraged from the conversation that I had with Sue, who's the treasurer, really, with ACAC. I think it would do us good as a board to perhaps re-engage there also, and at least see how we can continue to move down the road to try and solve this issue. And I know it's a complicated one. It's very difficult for people to understand school finance relative to this. And it's also complicated to understand that the swimming pool belongs and is owned by the city. It's on our property, and that was part of the agreement. So they have their building on our property. And this past week, I was going to give a lot of kudos to Jerry if he hadn't been sick. I did inform the board that Jerry spent most of last week working on the air handling system, having engaged mechanical engineers to come in and review that system as it existed, and talked about exhaust and trying to get that figured out. On the 27th, I know when he wrote me, he's doing some balancing firm to come in and measure airflows on the 27th. They're also going to do a smoke test to visually see where the airflow is going, and placement perhaps of fans, very similar to what we see at Linmar, where they have actually a vacuum system that does blow over the top of the surface of the water, and at the other end it sucks those chloramines or chlorophines, or I get confused on that part of it, but takes that off of the water, which is probably one of the things that I believe the doctor may even I think affirm that as you're swimming, those things hover just very shallow over the top of the water. So as you're swimming, that's what you're really breathing in. And if we don't get that airflow and make sure that it's taking care of it, there could be some things that are coming on. But we're planning with board approval, we can't do this without board approval, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 worth of testing, air testing in that building to find out what we've got to do to make sure that it can be safe for our kids until we can make up our mind which way we're going to go. I just wanted to point that out as part of our discussion. There is kind of a plan B going on, and it would do us good to engage in that one too.
Director Esposito, into your expertise with construction, if we quickly started to move forward on building a pool on our own, what is the reasonable timeline that we could have a pool operational at the south end of the practice, where we, well, anywhere, I guess. I shouldn't try to pinpoint where it's at. What's a reasonable timeline that we could actually do this?
Well, actually, we already have that figure. Jerry, our facilities director, has that out as 18 months. As a matter of fact, in this working worksheet that, December of 15, this was given to me. If we had started building the facilities building, or building the pool when we started building the facilities building, we'd be moving into the pool in July of 2017. So there's a lot, that's how quickly it could be done, from putting the shovel in the ground to opening the doors. I'd like to make a number of comments here. 2008.
So are you going to let Esposito answer the question?
Pardon me?
Mike was asked the question,
Oh,
not
okay,
you.
go ahead.
Are you going to let him answer?
Well, our director already has given us. that
Mike was
information.
asked the question, not you. Are you going
It's
to
a
let
matter
him
of
answer?
respect.
That's okay, I'm
And the
sorry.
information has changed in 2 years, and he much, no offense to you, no offense to anyone, much better than me, I know that he understands the pressures on the construction business. Has that extended, or is it shortened? Could we actually do it quicker now? I mean,
No,
that's
I think the
two-
market's the market.
Okay.
My prediction would be about 2 years. I think the next struggle, which would be the big struggle, is where do we put it? So south end of the practice field, well, we're going to see a bunch of high school scenario options next week, some of which have placement consequences with how some of that might go. So, it's probably takes 6 or 8 months to design it, probably 14 to 16 months to build it, 14 to 18 months to build it,
So
something like
we're
that.
18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
Between the two pieces of information we have. All right.
Yeah.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you. In 2008, my wife and I were searching for communities to finish raising our children. We had started that in Wisconsin. Our oldest and our middle child were competitive swimmers. And we got an email with a photo from a swim coach saying, hey, come to Ames. We've got a great program here, and look at this great new pool that the community just built on 13th Street, and that was the Furman Aquatic Center. In our visits, along with a trip to Indiana to check out this high school and the swim club that somebody mentioned earlier, that was one of the communities that we visited. Ames was the other community, and then the other community was out in Southern California, which we didn't tell our daughters about that until many years later, because they were quite upset about, what? We could have lived in Southern California? But fast forward, that was in 2008, and at the time, we were told, yeah, and then we're going to get our new high school pool soon. That was 2008. And I think it's closer, Alyssa, 3 years ago, I also sat in all three of those public hearings with you, and listened to the discussion about building a new aquatic facility in the community, and a number of people talked about what we need, what we want, and how it's going to look. And there was a pretty clear understanding that there was a need for a competitive basin, a warm water basin, and a lot of the amenities that we've talked about. At that point, most of the swim community thought we were well on track. Things look good. You know, we were going to be moving forward with something. Then, about 6 months later, a wrench got thrown into the mix. That, oh, well, we don't want to do it at Ames High. We want to do it somewhere else. That is what then postponed a lot of these discussions. I have both of my daughters, and hopefully not my son, but both of my daughters have been afflicted by performance and chemically induced asthma. Nothing else. It's not something that they get some other way, but it's been caused by their many years of swimming, and primarily at Ames High. Both have to carry with them little thank you inhalers in case of an emergency, and that's the only reason that they have to carry those, because of the chemicals that have damaged their lungs over the many years of trying to achieve their goals in their sport. As a volunteer, Tim, I mean, you and I have spent a lot of time at the timing table, or doing other volunteer activities for not only the high school teams, but also for the club team. And I'll tell you, you know, it takes me a day, at least a day, if not two, depending on how many hours I was in there over a weekend, maybe 3 days, to really get off of, you know, being able to breathe normally and, you know, getting that chemical, and it's not chlorine, it's the junk that's in the air. It's not a pretty situation. So most recently, when we started hearing from all these parents and the swimmers about this problem that is become acute lately, it has been a direct result of the fact that following the boys' high school season this year, the city management of the pool required that the doors and the windows be closed at all times. That has never, I've been here since 2009. My daughters have swam for Dan, they've swam for Mike and the previous coaches, and during every practice, during every meet, those doors are open to bring in fresh air, which is the simplest way to accomplish and address our current problem, other than building a new pool. So this recent problem was primarily caused by the city's management style and lack of cooperation with our ACAC in demanding that doors and windows stay closed. Why, I'm not quite sure, but that doesn't really matter. I'll also point out that over the many decades that the city and the school district has had a agreement or partnership, and this is something that I doubt very much people know, that for all these decades, you know, we've talked about how we've shared the cost. Well, sort of. And yes, the school district has benefited greatly from that. I think, Bill, you mentioned at a facilities meeting once, geez, you know, how do all these other school districts, you know, support all these schools? These are expensive costs. Well, Chris Stenslin pointed out right away that, well, Bill, other schools don't have a cost-sharing arrangement with their cities. They have been assuming these costs for years. But one of the things that we've had in this decades-long agreement and partnership with the city hasn't really been fair, in that we've been sharing the cost per year, right? Jerry adds it up, and then we divide it in half, and they pay their check, and we pay our check. But guess what? The city gets to keep all the revenue. That's not deducted from the cost. The city, for all of these decades, has been keeping the revenue. So when they're actually cutting us a check to pay the cost, well, they're getting all that revenue to help pay for that, but not the school district. Now, I wasn't really great in math. I was a social studies teacher. But when you do the math that way, that doesn't sound very fair of an agreement. And it's been going on for many decades. I too, I have to admit with Mr. Deerdorf, that I was intrigued by the idea that we could use Pebble monies or penny sales tax to look at alleviating some of the burden on our general fund. That looks good on paper. When you realize what we also do with those dollars, we also spend those dollars on facilities, maintaining facilities, upgrading facilities. Also, more, and even more importantly, is technology. Every 4 years, we upgrade our laptops at the middle school and the high school, in addition to other costs of technologies that we use those dollars for. So if we're going to be taking the money out of there instead of other general funds, that doesn't mean it's an endless amount of money that are in those funds. There are limitations to that. So if we're looking at building a high school, if we're looking to continue to support our investments in technology for the future of our students, that's something we need to keep in mind here. Bottom line, ACAC has come to us repeatedly, and they're not going anywhere. They're very strong. They've been supported by this community for many years. And I don't see anytime soon that ISU is going to be building a facility anywhere close to what the University of Iowa built that caused that turmoil in their swimming community and affected their club. That's not going to happen anytime soon. So we know our costs. We know what it's going to cost us to build a pool similar to Linn-Mar, and we have that money to move forward with it. We also have a financially strong partner in ACAC to share those costs of making up for the operating costs that we've had. And I'd also like to point out, when we're talking about, can ACAC bring in and support those additional costs? There's other opportunities for revenue that we haven't even talked about. Linn-Mar in itself has other sources of ways that they bring in revenue for their pool. They do, and I'll just mention a couple, and that is summer swim lessons and a little bit of open swim at night. Very simple. Last year, their annual revenue for that was $275,000. So with the opportunities, and I'm sure the swim club and the coaches that are sitting here know the ability through swim meets, through swim lessons, through other aquatic activities that a facility that the district owns could bring in, that we definitely wouldn't have a problem getting to half that cost or amount of revenue. But, I think we could even exceed it because of the need for decent swimming pools here in central Iowa. So that's why I'm going to definitely be voting against this motion. I think we should move forward. I think we've waited too long. We sat here in this room this summer and asked the city to give us an answer. They didn't. And we moved forward. And I think that, bottom line, this is our priority. Our priority should be to be building a pool for the school district that's on or adjacent to the high school property to allow our athletes and the athletics and academic use by the students of the district.
I'm conflicted on this whole topic because I've said for months, years in fact, that I want the city to be a partner in this process. And here I am tonight, hearing that the city wants our confirmation that we're willing to re-engage with them because we're the ones that pulled out. So let's go back in time. I'm going to try and keep this very short. Back in time, 1960s, we partnered with the city. Why? Because while we had land, we didn't have the money to build the facility. The city did. So they built it, they own it, we provided the placement, and then we share costs. Fast forward to the current. The city cannot build this pool. They don't have the funding. The only way to get it is to get the community to support them, and it took them a lot of effort to get the last pool they built. We, however, have the ability to build pretty much whatever we want or need. We just don't have the means to operate it. While I want to partner with the city, I want it very clear that it's going to be on our property, it's going to be our building, and they are going to be sharing costs with us, and we are going to be the ones who dictate what it gets used for and how it's used and all the other things, because it's going to be our building. So essentially, the roles are reversed, and I think that's partially why the city may be hesitant. For the record, we did not pull out of this conversation first. The city backed out of this conversation years ago. That being said, when they came together and started talking with other potential partners, and we got invited eventually, they were having conversations long before we got invited back to that table. In fact, we pretty much forced that to happen. When we backed out of those conversations, it wasn't an act of the board that did so. If the city wants us to commit to them, I want them to commit to us first, because they have been the one who has not been a partner in this process. One of the other things that's been brought up through conversation tonight is the city needing to pass a bond. Well, under the model that I just proposed, if the city were partnering with us for that reason, I find it hard to believe that they would have to pass a bond at all, because we would be the ones building it, which is what the bond would be for. All we're asking is for them to budget money into their park and rec fund, which they already do, to offset costs for operational purposes. It doesn't require a bond.
That was the model that I thought that they were, that was the most viable, but Luke, the new model, I mean, with the conversation.
Yeah, it still comes back to their needs are different than ours. So in our discussion with council, we were figuring out how can we come together. So it's unfortunate, and I clearly understand the frustration of everyone involved that this has taken so long, but I'm an optimist, and I want to figure out how to get this accomplished. And it would sadden me if we don't at least explore this in a very short time frame. It needs to be looked at, because while it's great to have that program, how is it different than orchestra, or how is it different than any other program our students are involved in? And I know it may be callous, but we're supporting 120 students here out of a 3,500 student population. And so I think we need to understand what the cost is per student in that activity, because our goal here, I disagree, Louis, our goal is to educate kids. And extracurriculars provide a great environment, but we have to focus on the education. We had a presentation today about our achievement gaps at the middle school. Why are we not talking about what additional funding can we help put in there to make them be more successful? And I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but I worry about not exploring options because we're making such a long-term commitment to this. It's worth our time for at least 4 or 5 months to explore this.
But this new model they're talking about is that we would just be leasing space?
Yeah, so
and it does free up money because it moves at least to Pepple?
Yeah, we'd have the option
Frees up
of
general fund.
Yes, we'd have the option to move to Pepple or 1 cent.
Can you
through
go over the
long-term lease.
details of this? Because, I mean, I got this information from the mayor.
Sure.
And so I'd like to hear our take on this.
Yeah, so we'll send out the 2080 agreement that Ankeny had with DMAC, but again, it allowed for, Ankeny provided capital up front. I think it was $3 million maybe, Dr.
Correct.
Taylor? $3 million, and then they also had a loan to where they were going to give more capital, but they didn't want to fund that out of the chute. So there was a repayment of a loan as a piece of that, but I don't remember the dollar amount. And then lastly, there was an operating component of that where Ankeny agreed to pay up to $50,000 a year to cover a third, I think. A
It
third
might have been less than a third, but it was in that general neighborhood. It's a maximum of $50,000 a year for operational expenses.
So that's where, my vision of Plan B would be, okay, Dr. Taylor's meeting with Steve to say, okay, this is our needs. We should be talking with our staff to say, okay, this is how we could utilize that program. So if we're in there for 4 hours a day, reasonably we could cover, 4 out of 24 as far as that percentage, maybe a little bit more if we're really advocating for it. But bring ACAC to the table and say, hey, what do you want to look at for space? What can they provide? So it's really building an enterprise plan that takes into factor all programs, whether it's a master's program, whether it's scuba, whatever it is, that can be a city community facility. And I think it benefits us.
Well, I just want to point out a couple things. First of all, on that point, they've never wanted to do that with ACAC, ever.
But again,
and then I just want to point out the other thing that you keep saying, and it's so wrong. You keep saying that this only affects students who swim on the boys and girls team. And it's not true. We have 3 days a week our special ed students that go to that pool and use that. Prior to 3 or 4 years ago, that pool was used in the PE classes. I was at a fundraiser Saturday evening for the Bliss Cancer Foundation here at Mary Greeley. And I had a number of the attendees talk to me about, geez, what's the issue with this? And these were men and women. Like, I had to take swim lessons when I was in high school. What's the big deal if my hair, we have to mess with the hair? Okay?
If you talk to
and
Spence,
that's why I think if we're talking about building a facility, we're going to use school finances to build a facility down on Ontario, away from the school. You're not going, because that's what was reported in the newspaper last week. There was a committee meeting that was held, the Park and Recs Commission. It was reported in the paper that that's the location that they're currently been discussing with ISU. And that is nowhere near, nor would that accommodate any use for any other students in this school district. It's something that I really think we're being foolish to think. We know that the principal has come here several times and said he wants the pool on high school's property.
Dr. Taylor, can you clarify for us the educational uses that Spence envisions?
Part of it dealt with, obviously, life-saving classes, because I think all of our high school PE staff at the current time have that license, so that'd be part of that. Those are about that plus the uses that we have currently going on for therapy with athletics. I'm not certain, I don't think Ms. Darcy can answer the question, or Jonas either, about the number of special needs students that use the pool during the week.
Our significant disabilities classes use it 3 days a week.
And how many students are involved?
I would say around 10 or less.
Right. So those are some of the things. Now, we've kicked around a lot of different ideas, especially we have the model from Linmar, but our problem is with 40-minute classes, you're going to go, you're going to get ready to swim, you're going to swim for 10 minutes, now you got to get back out. And kids don't operate like we did. I mean, they really don't. And what I mean by that is, my understanding is our athletes, very few of them take showers after the events. They go home to do that. They don't do that at school anymore like we had to. And I guess we can't require it. So it's
You
a
want
known
me to
thing.
address that? You know why they don't take showers in that at that pool?
Because it's
disgusting.
I'm talking about in the locker rooms, not just at the pool.
It has nothing to do with.
Okay.
And it- and
Director
I thought you were
Officer,
talking about the pool.
It has nothing to do
No,
with
it's-
the, with
and
the
it's
quality
also
of
every
those
district
showers.
that I'm aware of, they wear their sweats, they go to the athletic events, they do their thing, they put the sweats back on, they go back home. That's where they shower.
Kids go home to take their showers. And, you could go remodel that shower room and make it nicer than any of ours at our houses, and they still wouldn't use it. That culture part has changed, and it doesn't happen, and I don't think you can force that one. Can you clarify to me, I mean, you said 4 years since PE used it, is that?
Something.
It's been a little bit longer than that,
but,
yeah.
And our Coach Flannery, I mean, he's allowed to come up and speak. Do you know,
I'd
off the top
have
of
to
your head, when the
clarify, I
last
don't know how
time
long ago it was.
curriculum, when last time that PE classes used the pool? You've got a long history with that pool. Yeah.
We did have kayaks too, I think, and we sold them as a budget cut.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Good idea. Whatever year Spence was hired, so 2010, so.
Okay.
So that his first year as building principal, he went to the three PE teachers we had on the staff, to my knowledge, and decided to get rid of the canoeing unit and the swimming unit that they offered in PE, and thus restructured Mary Kautsky's role in the department. And then since we've built the weight room, now the weight room is being used by overwhelming majority of the students at the school.
Yeah.
And then the weight room is part of the PE department now. So
Is-
as a coach, it's somewhat outsourced to the PE department, which has been very beneficial, and I've really enjoyed that.
So going back that 7 years, was it just an optional class that just a handful of kids were taking, or was it still a required class right up to that point?
That's a really good question. I don't think it was optional. I think it was you had to take a certain unit of your PE course for that semester, and that unit lasted 2 to maybe 3 weeks.
Some point in your high school career, you had to take the swim class, is what?
You might need
right
some
up-
clarification from one of the PE instructors. I don't think it was some point. I think it was quite often.
I'll check into that, get the clarification.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always been that way.
Right.
I wasn't forced to do it.
Yeah.
So,
You
I mean,
weren't?
over time, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say that I was, but that's, all right.
You know, one of the things that a school in suburban Chicago does, because I agree, especially for those kids who can swim, they've done all the swim lessons, they got to every level, or even they're on the swim team. It's kind of crazy for them to, have to do the swim unit in gym class. What they do is if a student has achieved this in the Red Cross swim lesson levels, as a student achieves that, okay, and they can come in and provide a certificate, they have attained that level of Red Cross certification, then starting as freshmen, or whenever they do, they don't have to, for those 3 or 4 weeks, however long the swim unit is in gym class, they don't have to attend that. They can go to study hall and spend that time studying instead of getting wet, because they know how to swim. The goal here then, for that district, the reason they have that policy is that they're assuring that students that graduate from the district can save their lives. They can swim in a situation, at least, if their car goes off the road and they end up in a ditch, or they fall in a pond, which some of our coaches have pointed out, there's a lot of ponds popping up around Ames lately, that they can save themselves. They can at least swim. And there are a number of school districts that are revisiting that, and it's something that I think we should look at again.
One of the comments that Director Rosser made a little while ago about the ventilation in there and how the swimmers have always, I want to back him up on that part, that the swimmers have always opened the doors and opened the windows, and the airflow has been better. And it goes to my point earlier that if we're going to partner with the city, we have to have a more reasonable or active role, or there has to be more give and take with the club and with the coaches. I mean, that's just another action by them that was heavy-handed and wrong. And if we're going to have this partnership, it has to be a partnership. We have to have some say in how the place is operated if this is the route that we're all going.
So what's the thoughts on this side of the table?
I'll weigh in after you're done.
All right. So, a lot of really compelling arguments tonight. The proficiency of our team and our teams, I've got a couple recreational swimmers. The proficiency is great. It doesn't factor in a lot for me because I don't know that I would not support kids that weren't as successful as the swimmers are. Secondly, I think we need the city more than they need us. I don't know that it's the other way around, although it's been characterized that way. Or that's what I would have been led to believe. Frankly, I'm surprised the city came back because I think they can levy taxes, shoot, they can charge whatever they want. They can make themselves whole. We're not in a position because we're on fixed income. So if we go alone, we'll have a gap to close, and ACAC will help us close that gap, and then there's going to be still more gap. And so in this time when we're asked to do more with the same, or this will be doing more with more. So I think at some point, a future board, future superintendent, future will know the consequences of all of those choices. But we're going to be spending more there, and it's going to come out of somewhere else. We just don't know where. So that's how I think about all this. I'm a little emotional, not nearly as charged as maybe many around this. So all of that said, I think a couple things. I think we're going to have to spend some money to make our current pool okay, just to make it safe, and the city will have to come up. And I also think that that the city, the heavy lift of the Healthy Life Center is too heavy. I think it's noble. I just don't. I think there's too many moving parts, and I think it will be hard for it to come together and hard for it to come together in a timely way. So for that reason, shoot, I think I was the one 4 years ago who said, this operating budget, this is kind of a big thing, but I've kind of grieved to the point where I'm probably prepared to press on and keep Plan A us and make Plan B the city and not tell them no, but say, hey, we're going to keep marching. And if you can create an on-ramp for us in 4 months, great. But if not, no harm, no foul, because at the end of this, I can't imagine us not having a swimming pool as a school district, whether it supports our athletic swimmers or our students, and however that programming goes, I just can't imagine it. So I've kind of gotten over the hump where press on.
Luke, if they got a referendum and got it passed, is that timeline, have they specifically told you summer of 19? Because that was what was shared with me in my conversation the other day, that it would be, that they think they could, that if they press on with this, that they could get open by summer of 19? If they officially said it to you?
I was told fall of 19,
Fall.
but that's only a couple months after that.
Okay.
But when I was pushing
Okay.
a member on it.
And I cut off Director Talbot because he did ask that into the table.
I'll just finish simply by saying, Luke, I agree with everything you said. It's hard to let the option go by where it's not as burdensome to the budget. I agree with everything you said. I'm just probably to that point where it's hard for me to see a way through this with all of the effort necessary and important community effort for the Healthy Living Center. I'm not sure how much we add to that equation to help that lift.
Luke, I really appreciate the work you're doing on this. I don't know how you juggle all these problems. I really don't. Thank you. I'm going to vote in favor of working with the city. And I'm going to start all this discussion with some humor. At least it strikes me as hilarious that I'm having swim people call me and say, I'm tired of democracy. You do this and do it now. I don't care about transparency. You put the pool in now. And next week, there'll be 8 or 10 people in here screaming at us for not being transparent. I just think it's humorous that people get so wound up in their own view that they're telling us to do something without informing the community. Now, here's the problem with pools. Why doesn't Bondurant have a pool? Or excuse me, not Bondurant, Ballard. Apparently they don't. Somebody said they were going to open and roll here to swim. They don't have a pool because it costs too much. We're talking about spending $80,000 to $100,000 per student to build a pool. See, you guys are talking about ACAC, and love them to death, okay? They're great people, they're great kids, but they're not our job. Our job is the education of Ames students. So we have to start with the question, do we spend that $10 or $12 million on the high school, or do we spend it on a swimming pool? Does that $10 or $12 million make a big swing in what we intend to do with the high school? My view remains that we should have a 50-meter pool. My view remains that there are enough smart people in the swim club and parents of swimmers that they ought to be able to help us with this. Tell us where to find some money. Because we're talking about spending something between $1,300 and $2,000 per student per year to operate the pool. We only get $5,700 per student, or $5,800. How far off am I?
About 65. but you're-
$6,500. Boy, things have changed since I
Yeah.
started. So we only get $6,500 a student, and we're talking about spending as much as $2,000 a student to run the pool. So these are questions we really have to inform the community about and make an informed decision. Okay, what do I want? I want a 50-meter pool, and I want some good partners. ACAC is a wonderful resource, but they would be leasing from us. They're not a partner. We cannot have, or we will not have, the parents in ACAC coming to us and signing a guarantee for the money. So that's only a little bit of what we need. We need something more than that. But where am I at now? I don't think we're going to get our 50-meter pool. And I'm kind of with Mike, I'm kind of ready to tell the community exactly where we're at and say, folks, you've only got a short time to weigh in because we're going to spend this money. And we're going to spend this money for 50 years. So you better make a lot of noise really fast if you don't want a swimming pool. And I think that we're going to have to bite the bullet and proceed. And the method that I see that we're going to proceed is that we are working on a high school project. The pool is part of that project. We can't build it today. We don't know where to put it. The only place we could put it safely today is right over here. And that doesn't seem to satisfy people's desires. Because if we put it to the high school, we're probably going to interfere with our rebuilding plan. So we're a little ways off. We're going to be probably all through the summer working on the high school plan. So why not give the city 4 or 5 months? Why not work with them? Because we don't even know where to build the pool yet. And we need to continue to inform the community about how much money we're going to spend. Because it looks to me like as a board, we're ready to do it.
So, are you good?
So, I'm good.
So I'd say, it sounds like that plan A is that we keep progressing. I mean, that doesn't change. That doesn't change the motion here, because the motion is just that we re-engage with conversation. That doesn't say that we don't have conversation internally about what it sounds to me like we all think plan A is, moving forward potentially on our own. I would just hope that some of those conversations with the city on the plan B part, if we approve this, are that we have that more active management of it. I mean, we have to have that. There's no option if we partner with the city.
So I'd like to vote, but right before we do, I think we discussed this long enough, but I want Dr. Taylor to weigh in on where he thinks is best.
Thank you.
I think we continue visiting with the city, but we're going to have to call the question pretty quick. Bill and Mike have actually hit it on the head. As we begin to look at the high school renovation, there is a place for the pool on both of those sites. We can combine that with the 1 cent sales tax that we currently have, to help build the pool, we still come back to the operational things. And that's where I think ACC is a good plan B or A+, whichever way you want to look at it. We have to keep working both sides of the fence here and trying to get this thing figured out one way or the other. But I would be interested to actually get into the details on what the city thinks their Healthy Life Center is going to look like. And I'm curious about that because, Tim, what you've said tonight is not what I have been kind of informed on. So I'll get some clarification on what that really looks like. So I still believe there's two different entities. What the city wants is warm water, therapy, zero depth. We need cold water competition. And what that looks like, I believe, are two different things. So I'd like to continue to have the conversations with the city manager and see where we can go, but I also want to have some conversations with ACAC as we move along too.
All right, so let's go ahead and vote. A lot of good discussion.
I'd like to call for a roll call on this.
Okay. Again, the motion is to move the board re-engage city leaders and staff relative to a joint venture on an indoor community swimming pool. Roll call vote.
Rosser, nay.
Briggs, aye.
Rasmussen, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Talbot, aye.
Espacette, nay.
Passes 4-2. Items from the board.
What?
Items from the board.
What'd you say, 4-2 or 5?
Oh, I'm sorry. Myself. 5-2.
Thank you.
Plus here. Passes 5-2. Items from the board.
That was a difficult discussion, and I'm sure I'm going to hear from people on both sides of this that aren't happy with some of my comments, so I welcome that. I'll have this discussion with anybody, anytime you wanna, copy, email, whatever. I'm open to discussing any of it. That I think I made my point that as far as I'm concerned, Plan A has to be that we keep moving forward on our own, and Plan B, you can have these conversations and see what happens, and it's not changing our timeline dramatically. So, but please reach out, scream and yell, whatever.
Yeah, same here. Honestly, my heart tells me to say no, but the reason I said yes on this is because the pool has always been tied to the high school project. I mean, we talk about when it will happen. Well, it was never going to happen until the high school happened. That much was clear from day one. The high school is in that process right now. There is going to be several months of discussion. I don't have a problem re-engaging with Ames, but I want it on our terms. It's our building, it's our property, it's our pool. They can be a partner, but we need to have more control.
It's unfortunate that this motion passed because I think some of you are trying to give people false hopes. With this motion, the way it passed, we're going to now re-engage with the city, and the district will not move forward on its own pool until those discussions with the city are done. So, don't give false hopes here. Let's be realistic about what we just voted on.
Yeah, it's fortunate that this motion passed because we're moving forward with our plans. And why would we not take advantage of the opportunity to visit and see another option? That is wisdom, looking at all options instead of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
What I would like to do is, probably within a month, I know we're doing the high school plan next week, and I don't want to pair this with that discussion, but I think within a month, I'd like to have Dr. Taylor and I, and maybe we do it through facilities, is have a good discussion with ACAC and how we could actually build an enterprise plan. Again, they've provided us a plan back in 2014 now, but again, re-engage them to figure out what Plan A would be. That way we can have a good discussion as a board in a month on what we want to do.
And if I would point out, I don't know if it's ever been voted on, but it's certainly been discussed during my time as vice president and on the leadership team and stuff, that it certainly was the intention of only one entity in that enterprise plan with us, because it was discussed multiple times about if we could bring in other organizations, and that we were actually running the enterprise plan, and the decision was made that it would only be one person. If that's going to change, that you guys need to have that conversation, bring that back to us too, because Director Rosser did cite another school district that has more than one member in their enterprise plan. Our intention has always been that if we do that, that ACAC would run the program. We don't care what they do. If they have master swimming, if they have kayak, if they have whatever, they can generate all the money they can as long as they're partnering with us, and we were not going to operate 5 or 6 different entities in our own pool.
Mrs. Stensland, did you not tell me this afternoon that it is not something that we can do is run an enterprise program? Or did I misunderstand you?
Well, I think maybe there's a difference in terminology between what I, as an accountant, and what Iowa school law says is an enterprise fund. Our school and nutrition fund is an enterprise fund. It's ran as a business. It's a full accrual fund. It has revenues dedicated. It has to be funded by those revenues. Linmar is operating their pool through an enterprise fund. They're running their own swim club. Legal counsel has discouraged that as being something we can do under the statute.
They've discouraged us.
So
from
if you're
doing
talking about an enterprise plan being a business plan, and you're trying to develop a business plan for the pool, I think that's different than an enterprise fund, which is specific statutory authority. And the way legal counsel has stated that the only way we would be able to run it as an enterprise through an enterprise fund is if we have an adult education program, which has to include more than just swimming. We have to have an adult ed council with an adult ed director, a paid position. And so there's more to that.
And we'd have to also have a board, I believe, a community board
I think I said council,
directs
but
that
board.
and all that.
So the way I was hearing this was an enterprise plan being a business plan that you might have multiple, what I would call leasers. So if you wanted to bring more in and there was some way to schedule that facility that you could have a long-term lease with more than one entity, that is different than operating as an enterprise where we conduct swim lessons, where we charge people to lap swim. That's the difference. So if I misunderstood, but that's the way I was kind of hearing it. But you're right, we can't operate it as an enterprise fund and charge revenues for swim lessons, charge revenues for
Correct.
lap swimming, that kind of
We would have to lease it to
an
an
entity
entity.
to do that, yes.
To do that.
And using her terminology, the intention that's been, the board's intention up until now has been that we would only have one partner then, from what she's saying. And that we would not be partnering with 6 different organizations around town. We'd partner with ACAC, it would be the most likely thing, and then if they wanted to partner with somebody else and bring in other people to help them generate more revenue, that's fine, they can do that, but we're not going to, it was never our intention to go into more than one partnership agreement. Unless I'm-
One caveat to that is that the way that this happens, if we're building the facility, because we would have to bond to be able to build the facility, is that we would have to be able to issue qualified 501c3 bonds that would then allow us to partner with 501c3 entities that have education as part of their 501c status, so that they could rent from us without causing a private use of a tax-exempt funded public facility. So could you... I mean, I don't know an example to use, but could a business say they want to use us as their wellness facility and have all their employees come here and pay us dues? No, that wouldn't be a partner we could have. So with some caveats there on what our partners could be.
So for example, the basis behind all of this is anything we build has to have an educational purpose. And if we were to partner with ACAC, under the law, we would have to have an IRS hearing called a TEFRA hearing to determine whether or not we can let ACAC use that building more than 10% of the time.
Right, and they're already been designated a 501c3, and they have that status already.
They are
so
a
we don't know what that-
501(c) nonprofit, but that doesn't make any difference. They're not a government agency. So that's part of that buildup. in
Correct,
the
but if it
relationship.
fits the requirement underneath those
Yeah.
guidelines, they would fit into that.
Well, we don't know that they would fit into it.
We
yet.
have to have their 501c3 certification examined by bond counsel.
I
That's
think-
the first thing that he
yeah,
said.
I think we're getting
but-
too deep into the
Yes.
weeds here for 10 o'clock at night for anybody to deeply understand, but it's things that we'll make clear later on how all of that works.
Do we have a timeline on, I mean, you guys are taking this back to facility, you're going to have a conversation inside facilities, and then is there an expectation on when board will get an update on, you know, are we a month away, are we 2 months away before the next?
The work session is May 1st.
But I think there was a discussion that the pool would not,
I think you'll have a very clear picture after that May 1 work session on the high school, what a deadline might be relative.
I meant for the city conversations, I mean, is really what I mean.
Yeah.
How fast is that coming back? I understand that part is.
No, I think we're on the same page. That the high school renovation or build new, once we get into that work session, you're going to see what the timeline looks like, so it will be easily determined when we're going to have to make a decision. And I go right back with what Director Esposito said, probably about 4 months. It's not forever. We're going to have to know pretty quickly.
Because if we're giving some expectations to the city that we want some commitments out of,
The timeline that's been discussed with us is the 4 to 6 months, and we pushed on the 4-month goal for the feasibility.
are there any sort of benchmarks that they can get to sooner than that they can give us a midway point on that 4 months, or is it just 4 months? Are we talking?
Well, part of the difficulty I had in my conversation was that they're looking at a feasibility study, which in itself may take up to 7 months. So I'm not exactly certain what their timeline is. As I said, the conversation with Mr. Shanker was cordial, but we were just finding out what each of them needed. We didn't get any great depth on that.
Can we get is it reasonable to ask for a date commitment from them that after their feasibility study, are they going to put it down on paper that they think they can open this by fall of 19 or summer of 19? Are they going to put it down on paper that they're going to work with us a little better? Are they going to put down on paper that we're going to get a 25 stretch that's a cool water pool in addition to the warm water pool that they want? I mean, those are the three things that I have to know are part of this to support staying in this conversation with the city.
I think there's a sense of urgency by all parties. You know, talking with the council members independently, we want action on this. Everyone's getting feedback. So it's not like our meeting 2 years ago where we looked at each other and just kind of sat there. I think we want to move. So if the council knows we approved it tonight, we want to re-engage. They told us at our meeting that they're going to tell Steve to go. So they were just waiting on our approval.
Okay.
But again, I think ACAC needs to be at that table real quick to make sure that some of those things are in that plan, because we don't want to waste all this time on a plan that's insufficient if it's only 25. So again, I'll make that call tomorrow, saying you got to engage ACAC right away. Any other partners that can come and contribute.
The city needs to understand, I'm not willing to wait for 7 months. It's 5 minutes to midnight on this pool. It's been there for a long time. And we need to have a plan, and it needs to be executed. And if they want to drag feet for another 7 months, it's probably more like 9.
But we're not anywhere close to designing the high school yet, and that has to be a component. So, I mean, we have our work to do too. So
But in designing the high
urgency.
school, if we have a plan for the pool, it would benefit us with that design.
Yeah, so again, I see this moving in tandem.
Okay.
Anything from the board?
I think it will. It will move in tandem a lot quicker.
Items from staff.
Right at this point, we know that we're going to, if you're going to like this, School Board Appreciation is on May 8th. Director Talbot, I knew you'd enjoy that one, and we're thinking about something at about 6 p.m. that night before that board meeting, so we'll get more details out to you about that. And I think at our next board meeting, we're going to take a look at our board meeting schedule for 17-18. And we'll be bringing forward, I think, our first step in PEPL renewal, which is a PEPL resolution on the May 8th meeting. And that starts the process whereby we could, at the school board election this fall, add a item for renewal of our PEPL physical plant and equipment levy, which does so much for us, everything from air quality control to buying sousaphones for the band. So we'll start that whole process. And don't forget the May 1 work session on Phase 1, a high school project from John Hala and gang. And we're getting to that point, probably on May 22, we'll be bringing forward the graduation list because commencement is on Sunday, May 28th. So time is going rapidly towards the end of the school year.
All right, take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Franson, second by Esposito. Discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 7-0. We're adjourned.